7:04 p.m. This is a work session meeting of the governing body of the Borough of Bloomingdale, Tuesday, June 11th, 2013. I ask everyone to please rise to salute our nation's flag, and if you would remain standing a moment for a moment of silence to remember Senator Frank Lautenberg. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please. Here.
Councilmember Stellato.
Here.
Shortman. Here. Hoffman. Delariva.
Here.
Sondemire.
Here.
Yasi.
Here. Also with us this evening, we have a full house, is our municipal clerk, Jay McCarthy, our attorney, Fred Senrath, our chief financial officer, Mr. Tim Roberts, on the end. Our auditors from Samuel Klein Company, we have Joe Cohn and Andy Pascal. Thank you for being here. And I told her I wouldn't do it, but too bad our treasurer, Sherry Gallagher, is also with us this evening. So thank you everyone for being here. This is an official meeting of the governing body of the Borough of Bloomingdale, January 2nd, 2013. Public notification of the date, time, and place of this official meeting was faxed and mailed to all local news media posted at Borough Hall. As per state fire code, I am to acknowledge there are two emergency exits in the chambers, the door which you walk through, and exit to my left. If an emergency was to arise, please walk orderly out of these exits and exit the building. If anyone has questions on that fire code, please let me know at this time. Seeing no one, there's no need at this time for an early executive session. There is one non-agenda item we will be adding, which is the hiring of 4 summer help DPW employees, which we do each year. Just wanted on tonight's agenda so we can get this done before June 25th. Okay, it is a budgeted item, and gets done every year. This will be adding 4 part-time summer help employees for DPW. Okay, also there's 2 things I'll be adding to the consent agenda, which are simply an email we received from a resident, Joseph Apgar, praising the efforts of our Department of Public Works. There was a clogged storm drain before the heavy rains, and DPW diligently and quickly responded and resolved the problem so there was no flooding. And secondly, from Lisa Ensley, praising the work and the outcome of Oakwood Lake and how wonderful it looks with the improvements we made. You just know for the record, at 7:07, Councilman Conklin. How are you, Mark? Good, thank you. So again, those are the items adding that are not listed on the agenda. At this time, I have a motion for early public comment. Who makes that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wishing to speak to an agenda item, if it's budget related, you can wait until the public hearing on the budget. Any other matter, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Yes, sir.
Hi, John. Tom Miller, 7 Murray Street. Just to clarify, I know
Yes.
we've come to the point about capital items. It says, motion to open public hearing, that's where we can speak again.
This is the final adoption of the capital surplus ordinance we introduced at our last meeting. So you'll have an opportunity to speak specifically at that time.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to an agenda item?
Maybe,
Sure, agenda item? What?
I'm not so sure, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, give it a shot.
Tom Tracy, 150 Raton Road. I want to thank the mayor and the council for the fantastic job that I see going on in the roads right now. Rapkin Road, Knowles Road, Jeffrey Drive, fantastic. Love it. It's long overdue. Thank you so much.
It's not an agenda item, but I'll take it all.
Oh, I really don't, I'm new at this, and I don't really know like when I'm supposed to speak.
But that's fine, ask the question, and normally we'll let you speak.
You guys have been great. I love it.
Good, and it will be paid tomorrow, the rain is supposed to let up.
And just one quick comment. You ain't seen nothing yet on the roads.
Correct.
It was great.
Great, thank you very much. Wonderful. Anyone else wishing to speak to the agenda item? Seeing no one, motion to close early public comment? All in favor? Okay, moving along to item 8. The next many items have to do with the adoption of our municipal budget. We'll begin with the second and final reading and public hearing on ordinance number 18, 2013, again by New Jersey state requirement establishing a cap bank. Public notice statement, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this ordinance is posted in the municipal building, published in the Herald, and its copies available to the public. And a motion may be made that it be read by title.
And who makes that motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance of the Borough of Bloomingdale to exceed the municipal budget appropriation and to establish a cap bank.
And now a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Ray and, I'm sorry, who was that? Councilman Sonma. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wishing to speak to ordinance 18-2013, this is simply establishing a cap bank which is required. Please come up, state your name and address for the record. See no one, motion to close.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? And now who will make the motion to adopt ordinance 18-2013?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Delariva.
Yes.
Shortman. Yes. Sondemire.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Thank you. Just because there were some minor changes from some state feedback today, I want to defer to our auditor or our CFO. Is the agenda in proper order? Do we have to do any of the resolutions before we do reading by title?
No.
Good? Okay, thank you. So item B, the adoption of resolution 2013 6.1, a resolution to read budget by title. And who makes that motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Oh, and I read the whole thing.
You can just read the title on the last, out there for you as well.
Whereas NJSA 40A4-6 as amended provides that the budget shall be read before the public hearing, or that it be read by title only. Now therefore be resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Bloomingdale that it is hereby declared that the conditions of NJSA 48:4-8 as amended set forth in subsections 1A and 1B have been met, and therefore the budget for 2013 shall be read by title only.
Thank you.
And that would be the 2013 municipal budget of the Borough of Bloomingdale, County of State for the fiscal year 2013.
And again, just so we don't go out of order, I defer again to our CFO or our auditor. Do we need to do the resolutions amending before we go to public hearing on the adoption?
Public hearing first.
Very good, thank you. At this time, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Tomato, Shortman, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak to our fiscal year 2013 municipal budget, please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Alan Miller, 7 Murray Street. With John Ray, we've gone over this a few times. And I'm not sure if I should be speaking this now or wait till we get to the portion of the capital items. But under 11.2, 11D, states your authorization for capital items under utility. Now, is that the utility, is that part of the funding for the infrastructure?
Remember, there's discussed public hearings. We're adopting capital ordinance, non-utility this evening, $420,000.
Correct.
Where we're doing various road improvements and purchase of a police car, and some other things which are specifically listed on the agenda as well, after the adoption.
So I'll leave that till we get there.
That's fine, but then, just so you understand, then within the utility budget, we are authorizing capital expenditures using some of the Avalon Bay
That's correct.
permit fees, which resulted in a substantial surplus in the utility. We're using some of the revenue there to do capital improvements within the utility.
So again, that combined $213,000 for those particular capital items is coming out of part of the $1 million revenue fund that was left over, what we call at one time the infrastructure fund from Avalon Bay.
I'm sorry, which items now?
I'm looking at 11D, and you explained to me the utility portion.
11D, right.
Some of that's going to be funding out of the Avalon Bay.
All of that's being funded out of Avalon.
Correct. Now, if I understand correctly, the Avalon Bay, that what we had as far as the total funds available, that portion of Avalon Bay was $1 million.
Yeah, a little in excess a little bit, actually.
Well, I know it was 200,000 worth of revenue in the budget. Construction office revenue, 200,000 was on the budget. You guys projected $200,000 not put in the budget to be
Let me just distinguish.
excess at the end of the year.
Revenue from permit fees, for construction fees, goes to current operating budget, not the utility budget.
Correct, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, it is an item in the budget, construction office revenue. And
Correct.
that's where all this comes from, gravel on bed.
No, no.
It's not.
This comes from the utility permit fees.
No, I'm talking about the $1.2 million.
No, $1.2 million comes from the utility permit fees, not construction permit fees. Two sets of permit fees. The borough, just so you understand, the borough generated roughly, I'm using round numbers, 400,000 in building permit fees for
Correct.
construction. We realized million one
Million and
in
change.
utility fees, okay? And that's where item 11D is coming from.
Now, the 232. Now, again, I'm not sure if I can wait, but anyway, the other,
What's two?
11D, the other seven.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, the other $768,000, what's that state?
Well, it's remaining in surplus in the utility.
Okay. Do we have plans for that money?
What the governing body can only authorize this year is what we appropriate out of surplus to the current operating budget, which I believe total number was 40,000, roughly? Excuse me? 491,000 is what was put in this year's budget. All I'm asking for approval tonight in 11D are these items.
The 232,000, that's what they were.
Correct. Because
Now,
remember,
what's the, okay, so we got 560 left. We got about another 170,000 before you get 400. Do we know what the other 170,000 is for?
in this year's budget, yes.
This year's budget.
It is a combination of our mapping program, which is still going on, our sewer and water mapping, which is 120,000. And then we have engineering expenses. If you recall, the governing body authorized about $1 million in change in applications to the DEP, they call it Nano Infrastructure Loan Program, for about 5 roads on sanitary sewer line replacement. And the engineer designs total about 90,000. So that's what's using up this year. After that, we cannot spend any more money. We can't go back to the well,
Right.
so-called, out of that utility, out of that surplus. That'll remain, which is going to be roughly, I think it was almost 900, because we had 300,000 in utility surplus before the year started, non-out.
And that all has to be used towards utility.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comment on the 2013 municipal budget? Seeing no one, I have a motion to close, please. All in favor? Item 8D, adoption of resolution 2013-6.2. Resolution to amend the 2013 budget. And if I may, before I ask for a motion, defer to Joe or Tim, just to identify for the public and clarify for the governing body these amendments.
All right, the budget has to go down to the Division of Local Government Services for review. They reviewed the budget, they got back to us yesterday afternoon and early this morning. We have 2 items that we're amending the budget for. One is the $655, which is deficit in one of the trust accounts. The other one is a grant that the borough has received subsequent to the introduction of the budget for green communities, which is $50,000. And the other item was just a reallocation of revenues. We're reducing the revenues that we anticipated from the FEMA money, because the division felt that they only allowed us to take into consideration what we received in cash to date, and we had the money from the construction coefficient, so we reallocated the difference between the construction coefficient and the FEMA money. That's basically what the amendment was going to
So
do.
there's no change in the bottom line, there's no change in the tax rate.
Okay.
And just for clarification, we were all kind of surprised at the BCA's decision that we cannot anticipate the additional 94,000.
Most unusual.
Most unusual. So fortunately, we have the Avalon Bay permit fees to add as a revenue, and when we get the FEMA monies, that'll just roll to surplus.
That's correct.
Help us build surplus, which is suggested. Okay, thank you so much on that. So I have a motion to adopt resolution 2013-6.2. Any discussion?
I have some questions.
Yes.
In this budget, we have the Garden State Trust Fund, which was 0 in 12, and this year it's 6,500. What is it? Oh, my question.
That's another revenue that comes from the state. And normally, you would get that in the latter part of the year and set up as a reserve. What happened in 2012, when it came in, because it wasn't anticipated, it was not set up as a reserve, it just went directly to surplus as a miscellaneous revenue. So we had to take that out of the budget when we did the budget itself. But now this year, because it was certified by the state, I shouldn't say certified yet, it was a revenue that the state knows we can anticipate, but because the state budget is not adopted, it will be adopted prior to July 1st, when that money comes in, assuming that it's in the state budget, we'll have a reserve and then proceed with that budget again.
My next question probably you can answer. We're anticipating reimbursement of the FEMA money, and I keep hearing it's going into surplus.
Well, one of two things, we're anticipating $142,000 from FEMA money, which we already have collected in-house. The additional money that we have applications in for, we anticipated, but the division said, no, they did not want us to anticipate that until we actually collected that money. And that's where the conflict is. Timmy and myself, we both have other towns where they allowed us to anticipate it based on the applications that we submitted. So for what reason they told us only anticipate cash, we didn't want to argue only because we had the sufficient money from the other source of revenue.
But usually when you get money from FEMA, because we borrowed some of this money from our own space account, I guess I'm assuming that that money would be replaced when we got the FEMA money, but if you're telling me that it just goes into surplus.
Anything that's in excess of the amount that we have anticipated in this budget will go directly to surplus. All the state said was, is you collected $142,000, we'll allow you to anticipate $142,000, and then anything in excess now will be directly deposited into the town surplus.
What if we wanted to put it back where we borrowed it? Would the council make that decision?
I didn't know we borrowed.
Do we have an interfund from open space?
We did. We borrowed money from,
Well, it's not
I know we have an emergency for
For
$100,000.
Sandy.
We're raising that emergency over a 5-year period.
Yeah, we adopted an emergency. If there was an interfund of any money borrowed from the,
Well, let me defer to Cheryl.
okay.
She's talking about those that were directly charged to the Rose Fund, we didn't do an interfund.
Okay.
No, and we didn't borrow.
Yeah, those were valid expenditures from the fund itself.
Correct.
but this says Storm Sandy cleanup.
It was directly charged to there, it's not an interfund.
Right.
I guess I don't understand the inter. I just assume that if,
We
we
didn't,
pay
but
for
the current
something.
account did not borrow the money from the Rose Fund.
Right, this
Pay
was a
that
valid
back.
charge
It was
out of the
charged
Rose
right
Fund.
out of
Yes.
the Rose Fund.
So this will not be sent,
Sent
replaced.
back, no.
No, I guess in the future, if the governing body wishes to,
Yeah, that's what my question was.
wishes to reimburse out of surplus in 2014, the Rose Fund, I guess he can do that, is what Councilwoman's question is.
Exactly.
That's the council's
That would be our
desire.
decision to.
Correct.
That is yours alone, yes, as the council.
Now, just for the record, in 2011, when the governing body at that time billed out $90,000 out of the Rose Fund, the borough never put that back, just in 2011, just for the record.
I have a memo in the fall of 2011 from Ted and Donna, that Donna had said, we have collected $90-some thousand after we reimbursed the Rose Fund. And there are reimbursements.
There are some reimbursements.
Some, but not the full amount.
There wasn't the full amount, because what they did was they anticipated it, using it in
As a
their
revenue.
budget for that year.
Yeah, they were
2011.
reimbursed in
But
2011.
again, it was anticipated as a revenue, not for the total amount. But to basically answer your question, a council can choose to reimburse the Rose Fund expenditures from surplus if they choose to do so in 2014.
I guess one of the questions and one of the discussions I've been having with the attorney is just what can we use from the open space money? I guess I've always thought that when an emergency arises and we borrow it, that would be okay, but if we borrow it, it would be put back, because I don't think the open space
it's not borrowed. It's
I'm
spent
assuming.
to the account.
Okay, I guess I did mistake in assuming. It's like when you cancel a bond, I think that we're paying it off, but we're not. Just my misunderstanding. And I don't know, maybe Fred can tell us, using the Rose Fund money in this way, is this what the Rose Fund money is for?
When you say as far as like for FEMA,
No, Rose Fund, in other words,
Yeah,
Rose Fund
using Rose Fund for FEMA.
for FEMA, whether if it's maintenance of open space, removing trees from parks and desilting the brooks that flood the leisure field, I believe these expenses are justified. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right now, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, money for the storm cleanup, but you're equating the storm
Well,
to
it's better.
maintenance.
Again, much of the storm cleanup, absolutely specific to open space and recreation maintenance, certainly.
yeah, I mean, along those lines, yes, because that's exactly from the referendum question in the ordinance, as far as maintenance, preservation, that's financing open space preservation and recreation, facility development, maintenance. Yeah.
So the maintenance would be considered maintenance if it's a storm emergency then?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a borough property. That would be the case. Right.
So when this is money that we anticipate receiving back, which some of this we do, then in this case, we get to build our surplus on this Rose Fund money. Or-
Well, again, you have to distinguish what was charged out of the Rose Fund. It's a direct charge to that fund. Okay? In the past, and even this year, although we're doing better than the past because they paid straight time, right? Normally we have a 25% obligation. So in the past, the Rose Fund was not reimbursed. I mean, I'll go back as far as before Irene. And there was a time that the Leisure had $60,000 worth of damage, I want to say from Floyd, maybe it was that long ago, where the money was paid out of the Rose Fund. And when the borough gets back only 75%, barely enough to cover the emergency appropriation, okay, there's no money to go back into the Rose Fund. And that's why those related expenses are direct charge to that fund.
Well, can we get that money? We have that choice.
To answer, that was the basic part of the question, yes, sure.
Right, yes, I
But in the
did.
past, you never had that choice because you needed to fund the emergency appropriation from a storm in the current operating budget. How else would you fund it, other than FEMA money? Right.
But what I'm saying is, if you choose not to repay back money that you have so-called borrowed from like the Rose Fund, then that's how you would build your surplus. with that money.
Well, that absolutely would help it, but if a governing body in the future wishes to reimburse the Rose Fund, I would not object if you can afford it within your current operating budget, but I would suggest it's only 75% of that amount, because that's all you got back from FEMA.
And I'd just like to clarify for you too, Mayor, it's not really borrowing from the Rose
Right.
Fund. These were considered legitimate expenditures from the Rose Fund.
I think there's some confusion on building surpluses. If we had no zero debt, right, building surplus would be a bad thing. What are we building for? We're taking people's money, raising taxes, and building a surplus for what, right? However, we do have a lot of debt. We have $12 million. So building a surplus to then use it to pay off our debt and reduce our taxes is a good thing, it's a positive thing. So I guess I'm kind of confused on where you're going with putting money back into Rose Fund. What are we doing?
But
You have
the
plans
Rose
for the
Fund
Rose
is a
Fund?
dedicated specific tax.
So do you have
And
plans
if we
for that?
take the money and spend it, that's one thing, that's what it's there for.
Right.
But if we take it and FEMA gives us money back, then why not put it back there for the use
And that's a
of the Rose
decision
Fund?
a governing body
Yeah,
can
I
make
think I
before
understand that now.
And that's a decision that no governing body in the past has made, just for the record.
Okay, my other question was, I don't know if this has changed on what we got tonight. The receipt for delinquent taxes was 0, has that changed?
No, that is not changed,
Well, why is that?
because we had an accelerated tax sale. So therefore, there are no delinquent taxes, okay?
So by the end of the year, if a taxpayer doesn't pay their bill, we've sold that tax lien, so we have our money.
Right.
So we're 100% because of the accelerated sale,
Okay, that's the reason for
which
that.
Barbara just lost.
Okay, why, Why did our legal go down 15,000?
Because we no longer have a part-time assistant second attorney.
I thought that's why. Why did we keep gasoline at 104 when we spent 107? And gasoline, as all of us know, does not go down in price.
That 107 you see spent is for 11 months.
Well, that's a lot more spent. What is 104?
So the reason you asked why keep it higher is
No, it's
because
lower.
what you're referring to is.
No, she wasn't in rate. One rate raise.
You spent 107 and budgeted for this year 104. So it seems that is, to me, would be under budgeted.
Well, the prices have come down a little bit, number one. Number two, a hurricane was a big part of our gas bill last year. That's probably the biggest reason. So I'm sure close to 20,000 of that last year's expense was hurricane. Or 10,000. I don't know exactly, but a substantial amount.
We have a capital improvement fund was 30,000 last year, this year it's 50. I was just asking what that's for.
That's deposit money for any future debt. And because of Rafkin Road, we need 5%. So we needed $45,000 just for Rafkin Road to go out and fund that project.
When you figure I guess this is Greg to answer this.
Sure.
When you figure the interest on notes at 39,840, would the 4,000 being paid by the Rose Fund for the lights interest, would that be an additional 4,000, or is that included in this?
Where are you getting your 4,000
Well, we discussed
Well, we
it
just, we
earlier.
took 1% on $400,000 loan. You should say the interest on the note on the light project would be roughly $4,000. Councilman's question is, in our total budget of $39,000,
For that
does that include the interest on the note for Walter T. Bergen lights?
No, that would be out of the road.
But it's not, it's coming out,
So the notes will be an additional 4,000.
well, I'll defer to Sharon, it's included.
No, it's included.
Right.
It's in that 39.
It's in that 39.
Well, how does it get from the Rose Fund to the 39?
I spoke to you about this already. In the ordinance, I read you the ordinance does not say that the interest for the notes will come out of the ordinance. The only thing the ordinance was set up to do was take the deposit out of the Rose Fund. And that's what I spoke to Tim about. And the ordinance does not have it in there that it's to pay that.
And I'd like the attorney, because I have discussed,
Well, and I won't dispute the fact that the referendum question said the lights will be paid by the Rose Fund. So when they go to permanent bond, that we start paying off the principal, then the principal will be paid.
But
No,
even the principal,
bond will be paid by
the
the Rose
ordinance doesn't even say the principal.
Fund. It doesn't.
but I don't, it's not the ordinance, I believe, that I'm addressing. It's the referendum question. Maybe Fred can clarify that for us and for you, where it's paid from.
Yeah, the referendum question says that, that bond should be paid
The bond should be paid.
Bond, right. Have a
Okay,
bond.
not notes,
by
bond.
the open space tax. So yes, you would take a position.
Well, we have notes right now, we don't have bonds.
It's not, no bond.
It's not a bond.
It's just temporarily financed.
Temporarily, but, no finance.
So we'll have to.
Well, we have a note right now, until we have a bond sale, at that time, then it'll be permanently bonded, but right now it's not permanently bonded, we only have a note on it.
So the notes are just to pay the interest to carry the bond.
Correct.
That's correct.
And so
To
when
carry the ordinance.
when it converts to a bond, then the monies for the bond would be paid out of the open space trust fund.
Correct.
Is that what you-
Well, they would be actually anticipated as an item of revenue in the budget to offset the appropriation. The principal and the interest has to be paid through the operating budget of any debt, but we could then anticipate the item of revenue from the Rose Fund to offset that.
So then it would be paid for, right?
Yes,
When it becomes a bond.
right.
So you're saying that the interest for the Walter T. Bergen School lights will be paid out of the general?
It's part of the
budget?
39,000.
Part of the 39,000.
Okay, and yet in the referendum, it says that the bonding would be repaid through the Rose Fund, a fund that is already being financed by an open space tax. And then the next sentence says, financing of this project shall not be paid through the borough's general capital fund. And I personally would consider the interest part of the financing.
I agree with you 100%. I don't understand why we're paying that out of the general
Okay,
fund.
we're gonna
That
get
needs
this.
to be a revenue. But having said all that, That's not, you had plenty of time to go through this. We had 2 meetings. Why you wait until tonight to go through a $4,000 item? When we have the best budget in 10 years, you're creating something out of nothing.
Ray, I'm getting
$4,000.
answers to my questions.
Just fine, let me-
That's
let me-
all
I
I'm
agree with you
doing.
100%.
That's all I'm
but
doing is
you
getting
have
answers.
multiple choice chances to
We
bring
had a
this forward.
meeting, I don't know how many meetings ago, when this came up, and the mayor said that the $4,000 will be paid from the Rose Fund. That's on the record. And yet my question
We can do
only
that.
has to do
I'm
with
100% in agreement with that.
Councilman, the referendum question says the bond will be paid out of the Rose Fund. Now, you recommend, and I'll defer again to Tim and Joe. If we want to anticipate 4,000 from the Rose Fund, because it's actually even help your current operating more so, can we anticipate that as a revenue after adoption?
No, at this point, what we could simply do, based on the attorney's opinion, we would cut a check from the Rose Fund for that specific interest amount and credit it back to this appropriation, the 39, and debt service appropriations do not carry over, so it would go right back into surplus at the end of this year. So you could do that. We could authorize a check to be drawn from the Rose Fund, credit it back to the debt service budget, and that'd be the end of it.
And it won't affect adoption this evening.
No, it will
We
not.
don't have to take any action on that.
No, if you wanted to anticipate it as an item of revenue, then it'd have to go back to Trenton. We would have to withhold adopting tonight.
Okay. All right, so we can move along tonight, and then we would put on a normal bills list?
Exactly,
Like, so at our next meeting, council will request to put this on the agenda,
right?
and the governing body can vote on it at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
All right?
Councilwoman, is that what we'll do?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yes.
$4,085.
So rather than have him make a formal request, Jane, for the next, actually,
No, I'll put it on the bill.
Put it on the bill.
Yeah, just be a regular bill for council consent, yes.
that's fine. Okay. Anything else? I'm sorry, Fred?
Then I think that's consistent with the referendum question.
That's fine. Even though it's not bonded, but that's.
Right,
I'm
so
not
it is the financing, that's what that gives it. Absolutely.
Perfectly fine. And there's the funds there to do so. Okay. Anything else, Councilman?
Just the things that I think that are missing from the budget. I know that it will be called petty, but I still feel that I don't see any need to increase the mayor and council's expenses or the general administration, other expenses. And the municipal clerk told me that she did not ask for an additional $3710. My other thing that I said at the budget hearing, which I'll just repeat now, is I really think that the rec department and the public events should be combined into one department. I think they can do a great job. I know when we needed money last year, we just went to the rec department to finish off our public events. And I don't see any reason to increase that account.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment?
Just Ms. Shortman also said at the same budget hearing that for the last 3 years she sat on the budget committee, she really didn't understand the budget.
You know, I've learned something every day, and when I can spend time in the office with our employees, they're more than helpful. I've spent time with Tim, and yeah, I am in learning mode. And unfortunately, being a primary teacher, I don't know as much about finance as you do, and I certainly don't know as much about the municipal budget, and I will admit that, but I will also admit that I'm learning.
This is the lowest budget in 10 years, and we wait for tonight to bring your gotcha questions.
No, I didn't wait till tonight.
You did.
I did not wait till tonight.
Very
The items that I object to, I said to at the public hearing.
All right. Anyone have any other questions, comments? Might regret it later. No. Okay, we are,
You did.
I don't know how we went to discussions.
This was, just do.
Right, we're just on the resolution to amend. All right, so there's a motion on the table. Okay. Any further comment on the resolution, actually to amend, it's just to amend. Okay, I need a roll call, please.
Councilmembers Tomato?
Yes.
Delariva?
Yes.
Shortman?
Yes.
Sondemire?
Yes.
Yasi.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes. Now I need adoption of resolution 2013-6.3, adopting the 2013 municipal budget.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry?
Do I have you
You can just read the top part, A, B, and C.
So the motion was made by Councilman Yasny, seconded by Rich Delacour.
Be it resolved by the governing body of the Borough of Bloomingdale, County of Passaic, that the budget therefore set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated in the subs therein, set forth as appropriation authorization in amount of A, $7,514,257 for municipal purposes. D, $186,101, open space recreation, farmland, and historic preservation trust fund levy. And E, $273,479 minimum library tax.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Delarose.
Yes.
Short. No. Sondemire.
Yes.
Yasi.
Yes.
Conklin.
No.
Demotta.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll take a 5-minute recess. I'd like to say goodbye and thank our professionals for being here this evening. Said you have to stay. At 7:49. Next item are any reports from our professionals, department heads, committees, liaisons, etc. Madam Clerk, do you have any reports?
Just, Mr. Mayor, as you all know, we will be having a special primary election for Senator Rockford seat, and I posted on the website today the dates for party affiliation change and voter registration. And the election is August 13th. We don't have too much more specifics yet, but
Okay, thank you. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything for us?
No, Mayor, for the next meeting, I'll have just a discussion about foreclosures. Touch with the title company, there's some things that I need a little direction on from the governing body. I know money goes down.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything?
I just have my regular, health department was canceled, that meeting. The environmental commission met, and they're very pleased, and anybody who drives by Friendship Park sees that we have the county working there. Frank O'Reilly has been working with them on a landscaping plan and made recommendations for plants and picnic tables, etc. So they seem to be really cooperating well, and the committee on the Riverwalk has a copy of the Riverwalk study, the focus study, which we will be reviewing and meeting with Ed. I will give Jane or Terry a copy that to keep upstairs, and we're just waiting to go over it with Ed to see if, there are any changes to be made to that. That's all I have.
Does anyone else have anything?
Mayor, we had our first public safety meeting. Mike, I sat with.
Second.
Joe.
Second.
Second, excuse me. And we spoke about the permit parking. He went through his whole plan of efforts, so that's on the agenda tonight. We spoke about a few other items. We're still waiting on the licensing for the radio system. So, that's pretty much it.
And ordinance review, I'll just speak to that. They had recommended, which are on the agenda for introduction by title this evening, 2 ordinances, one for allowance of chickens in town, which already exists on R130, larger lots, and then we're approving for small lots. We'll explain when we get to the ordinance a little more detail on that. No, it's because it's a big, there's a demand, actually. And also the trap parking ordinance, which I'll speak to more when we get to that. Shared services, no update other than as I reported every meeting. They're going well. We met with Kim Lon, superintendent, DPW superintendent, on the jet backing of various storm drains. We have camera Grafton Road storm drains, so we'll now get them up there to do any of the cleaning necessary for the basins and the drains as well. So all those new services are going very well. Flood committee, other than the Van Dam sidewalk, has been repaired after probably 10 years or 7 years. This repair due to storm damage came out very, very well. Regarding other flood issues, again, we are waiting on DEP. The engineer keeps promising me that we should receive full final permits very soon to go out to bid, hopefully by the end of this month, to repair the park. And our Main Street flooding issue over the summer, we're at the mercy still of the DEP. And believe me, I'm on it with the engineer to make sure this proceeds before the summer ends. Regarding recent storms, I had directed, although it was already on DPW's list, to maintenance prior to the recent rains, best they could, and de-snagging the brooks. We had our normal high spots in the flats, but no major flooding. I had a conversation with the engineer to seek permits to do actual desilting in some of the brooks, and some additional de-snagging, which we need permits for because it feeds the Class 1 Quantic River waterway. But that'll help our problem even more so by actually giving more depth to those brooks, and there is money in the flood bond to do so. So that's also in the works. My report I emailed everyone. I'm not going to go, there's 22 items on it, I'm not going to read verbatim. Does anyone have questions on what I submitted? I'll just highlight a few of the things. Paving, as you know, has begun. The rain has kind of delayed things. Jeffries, Rathman, and Reed will be paved over the next 2 days. It'll be completed, and then we'll proceed with the other streets I reported numerous times at meetings. The Leisure Place intersection of Reeve and Oak, 3rd Street, and a few others out of the bond orders we're going to do tonight to proceed with those 2013 road projects. I'm almost completed with my 15-year paving plan, as I told you I would be putting together, so we can identify a 15-year plan that every road is touched in that period of time. So when a resident has a valid phone call about when's my road being paved, we'll identify it in our capital plan. Today I met with the county. I had a county meeting regarding our community development block grants, which are the grants we have successfully received in the past. That's the grant that put sidewalks and curbing on Henyon Street. This year's application, remember, was for Ryerson, a new sewer line on Ryerson, repaving curbs, etc. We should know by July on our award for that. We applied for $230,000. But today's meeting was about what we were funded for in 2012, and that was for the replacement of the storm drain in front of the post office. That is a failed storm drain. It goes under the road between the cleaners and the building next to the cleaner, and that's what today's meeting was about. Federal, this is from HUD funding. They finally released the funds to the county, though the engineer today told me that will not be done until spring for that water main, storm drain replacement. Tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, I have a presentation in front of the County Open Space Board to present our grant for the restoration of the Leisure Field, which we are seeking $150,000 to restore the stonework at the Leisure. Okay? And regarding that nano infrastructure principal forgiveness loan we applied for, we should know by July. We're awarded any money for those 5 street replacements, which were, again, a full repave. So that's what's kind of holding me up on our 15-year plan, because if we get funding, we'll be paving Poplar, Oak, and whatnot quicker than we thought, because we'll have funding for it. Okay? Again, that's the gist of it. The cleaning company started. They did a blitz last week. They're here now daily. I notice a big difference. I don't know if you do. I'm going to close attention because I think it's working well. Our new employee had started also last week and is working out very well also. So we're very excited about that. Does anyone have any questions on my report? A lot of my report, which will address the capital ordinances, work that we're going to proceed on after this evening. Okay?
John, can you read the first line of the email that you sent forth? Just that first line. Read it out.
What, it's 8 p.m.?
Yeah.
What's that?
Just read that first line.
Friday, June 7th, that it's 8 p.m., and I just did a tour of the town. The river seems fine. It has a long way to go before it reaches its banks. The flats are its normal backyard flooding, but no major road flooding. I had DPW snagging the brooks over the last few weeks from also the Chestnut, Tyson Chestnut, and Nantan Shelter. We still need to desilt the small brooks. I call it into the permit process, as I'm confident
we have the funding in place to bond.
I just want to point out, you know, the difference between the guy that lives in town, the guy that gives his heart and soul to the town, and hiring just another employee. It's these little things that we see. I just want to have an opportunity for the public to see a little bit of that, right? It comes across these emails, it comes across everything that he talks to us about, but the public doesn't get to see it on a regular basis, and it's important to point those things out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have anything?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Board of Education. I just want to say, of note to us, the Board of Education has appointed a bond council. They're going to bond for several capital improvements in their buildings, not including this area. And it was mentioned there that apparently at some point in the process, they're going to come to us for an audit, which apparently sometimes some boroughs do for free, or other times they charge $100. So I don't know exactly when that happens in the process, but apparently the entire borough's finances is somehow analyzed as part of their bond process. Yeah.
So they're going to come to the borough for our audit?
No, not our audit. Somehow we present the audited numbers for them, for the entire borough. So.
Well, Sherry does their finances.
Right. I just want to know that they'll be touching
Okay.
us. And that is, by the way, stuff like the boiler replacements, handicap stuff, and security lighting. It does not include if they decide to close SRD or building extensions or anything like that. That's still further down the road. But there was some more positive note up there. Apparently, a master students at Rutgers has joined their committee and will be doing the collating of the report and stuff like that as part of their master's work. So hopefully that means we'll have a nice tidy report to say, when they finally make a decision on, or recommendation, I'm sorry, on what to do by SRD.
My question is, when we went to the meeting in the boiler and all these improvements,
Yes.
that was their justification of raising our taxes to cover the expense, so they wouldn't have to go to bond or referendum. Right?
No, these were separate items.
Because we spoke again about the boiler.
Yes, we did, and I asked about that at the meeting, as a matter of fact, and apparently a couple people, including ex-Councilman Shipman, went to there, and apparently, regardless of what the actual state of the boiler is, it's old enough that finding parts for it, if it ever failed, is highly problematic. And I guess they took a look at it and said, everybody agreed, it's a good idea to replace it.
But I hope they're thinking about closing the school, putting an addition on before they go purchase boilers. They need to make sure the boiler that they're purchasing is going to be able to handle an addition, or you'd be buying more boilers.
Right. I will point out something else I forgot. Apparently, they've had a stroke of luck in their timing. The state has apparently opened up their regular operating district grants again. Apparently, they found money that they said they run out of a couple of years ago. So the Board of Education is in good position to possibly get something like 40%.
Excuse me, sir. Did you hear the last part?
Something like 40%, I think was the number, for a grant for this, instead of having to bond all of it or anything like that. So, but that, at the time of the meeting, which was last Monday, they hadn't even gotten the applications ready for people to even fill out yet. So that's how early it is in the process there.
Did they say how much that bond is?
No,
That isn't just what it,
no, they didn't have the numbers.
but that they went bond and they're going to go ahead and replace the boiler at one of the
Can I
days?
speak into the microphones?
Sorry.
Yeah. Martha B. Day and Walter T.
Okay.
Are they going to hold up on the other improvements to include it all under one?
No.
Maybe not raise our,
No, they don't. The bond.
well, if they're going to wait,
There's about 10 things. Now, remember, the bonding process is a long process for them. They've got to go through Yeah, exactly.
Have to go to
We're
referendum.
discussing about, is it November, is it December, so they got a while before they go anywhere.
Now, I don't know how many of those 10 items were in this year's budget. I think that's what counts. That's a lot of seniors. Let's say, $600,000 of the items on the list were in this year's budget. If they were successful with the referendum, then that money would just roll to surplus.
If there was any overlap, and I don't know whether there was.
Okay, they may not be over, could be entirely separate projects.
They could be.
Because those needs would have.
Yeah, I would need to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
Yeah, okay.
And then on the 25th, when you give your report, just try to identify, here's what's in the budget, here's what they're looking to fund. This way
Right,
we
I mean,
understand
I have here a list of what they're putting in the bond.
Right.
What I don't have here is the list of.
what was in the budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be nice just to know.
Okay.
Not that we can do that.
Well, no, but.
Rich?
I mean, on Rich's defense, though, we really need to, as a public, we need to go to these Board of Ed meetings and try to understand what it is they're spending money on. Because it's affecting our taxes. 53% of your taxes is controlled by Board of Ed, not this body. Only 26% is controlled by this body. That's it. $2,500 out of your $9,700 tax bill is controlled here. Rest of it, most of it, at Board of Ed meetings. So go ask questions. And we should as well. It's not fair to have Rich on the spot.
I will try to go because that $500 increase this year hurts. I thought it included a boiler. Now you're telling me it doesn't.
250.
Yeah, well, that makes
Like I
my
said, I don't
500.
remember what was in the budget.
You'll report on that on the 25th.
Yours.
Thank you. Okay.
The thing I forgot, excuse me,
Sure.
is that I just want to bring to everyone's attention is, and the fact, the three of us would probably be very interested to know that the Martha B. Day School is planning a 50th birthday party for October 5th from 1 to 3. It's a Saturday, and they have a lot of nice things that they're planning to do, and I'd just like everybody to be aware of it. We're going to be working with the committee to look for graduates and teachers who have left. So just so you know, mark your calendar, October 5th.
Okay, thank you. And also, you remind me that next Wednesday, the 19th, is the Walter T. Bergen 8th grade graduation. Moving along, approval of the consent agenda. On here, we have a thank you letter we received from the Bloomingdale PTA through Clean Communities I Fund and Earth Matters program. It's an assembly throughout the schools about the importance of recycling and those type of topics. So we got a thank you note. We're also approving May 14th work session minutes. As I stated earlier, we've added a very nice letter from resident Lisa Ensley complimenting the improvements made to Oakwood Lake, as well as resident Joe Apgar thanking our DPW for their quick response on a basin issue prior to the rain. So that is on our consent agenda. And who makes the motion to adopt?
Second.
And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving along to item 11, pending business. We have our second and final reading and public hearing on ordinance 19-2013. This is adopting our zoning map. This is simply a requirement as part of the codification of the zoning that our ordinance review committee and planning board has finalized and has requested codification. This is a step in the process. So, public notice statement, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this ordinance is posted in this week, published in the Herald News. Copies available to the public, and a motion may be made that we read our time.
And who makes that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Trustee Delariva, all in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance of the Borough of Bloomingdale, and County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, the Code of the Borough of Bloomingdale, amending Chapter 33, Land Use Procedures by adding Section 33-11 zoning map.
Thank you. And I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Yazdi D'Amato, all in favor? Anyone wishing to speak to ordinance 19-2013, the zoning map adoption, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Yazdi Delariva. All in favor?
Aye.
Any motion to adopt? D'Amato, Yazdi. Any further discussion? Other than we have two members of our ordinance review committee here, Mr. Bill Graff, and Mr. Ed Simone. We thank you guys. You put a lot of work into this over the past number of years, and we thank you for all you've done for the borough. So long time. time coming, so thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Can we discuss it first?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, we're in discussion.
I have a copy of the map from 2009. And this, I know there's a big one up in the office, and I just glanced at it, but I haven't been able to compare the two. Could somebody tell me the difference between 2009's map and this map?
I really,
2012?
there's really no difference, we're just, there's actually the adult entertainment zone that I don't think showed on the old map, which is now somewhere in the boondocks. That's about it, but it's really the same, it's just now we're codifying it. You know, we're putting it on the books, codifying it, that's all we're doing. Anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Short.
Yes.
Sandemeyer.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Conklin. Tomato.
Yes.
Delariva.
Yes.
Thank you. Also this evening is our second and final reading and public hearing on ordinance 21, 2013, appropriating $420,000 from general capital surplus. Public notice statement, please.
This ordinance was posted in the municipal building, published in the Herald News. Copies available to each officer and motion made and read by title.
And who makes that motion?
So moved.
Yazdi, Conklin. All in favor?
Aye.
Ordinance appropriating $420,000 available from the general capital surplus fund to provide for various purposes described herein and by the Borough of Bloomingdale, County of St. New Jersey.
Thank you. And a motion to open public hearing?
So moved.
Yazdi, Tomato. All in favor? Aye. Anyone wishing to speak to ordinance 21, 2013, please come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Al Miller, 7 Mary Street, Bloomingdale. Just a couple questions, Jen, trying to watch what we spend. Video equipment for chambers, is there something wrong with the video equipment we have today?
Yeah, it's actually Councilman Delariva's personal camera that we were using.
Okay.
But that's not the only item in that line. It's new video equipment, as well as LED sort of screens or formats where when we do presentations, we have a little better format for the public to see. Agendas posted. and
What
whatnot.
about, like, editing equipment?
No, not editing. Rich does that on his own time. It's just a new camera. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's also for you.
Right.
If I could say,
Yeah.
Al, I don't know if you've actually watched Channel 77?
No, I come to the meetings, so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But a universal complaint, I think I'm safe in saying is universal, is the audio quality, which I do spend a lot of time trying to work on. But the fact is that camera, it just has a mic in it,
Okay.
So not only do we want, a camera that actually belongs to the borough, but one that can actually hook into the audio system and pick up the audio better. Because, it's just picking up what it hears in the back of the room. So, that's part of the...
I didn't know, that's what.
Okay.
Computers for the borough, how old is the computer we have here now?
Anywhere from 7 to 10 years.
Okay. Police vehicle, why are we purchasing a police vehicle instead of leasing? Any particular reason why? I mean, if we lease a vehicle instead of purchasing a vehicle,
Get
please.
back.
Well, I see now, I mean, where I work, we lease vehicles, we lease them for a 3-year period, after 3 years, we keep them, pay a minimal amount on the lease, and we run them to 150, 60,000 miles. Now, if you purchase, you spend $40,000 for a new police vehicle, and you do this to a note, which is later a bond, and you pay 10 years on a bond, I mean, how much do we end up paying for a police car? It cost originally $40,000. Okay?
Well,
I mean,
this
it's
is
coming out of capital funds, right, $40,000?
It's coming out of capital surplus, so it's money we've already bonded.
It's money
out
on
back.
It's already been bought.
It's already been bonded, already paid for. Okay, so now we're gonna spend $40,000 on a car that we could very well end up paying more years on that gets used up and done. I mean, I just don't understand why we were purchasing instead of leasing, that's all.
Well, the purchase allows us to go to state contract, and the rate versus the lease is considerably less. I mean, the goal is not to spread out the payment on the car over 10 years of life of the bond. Our goal is to, as we stated, pay down a substantial amount of debt over a 3-4 year period. So we're not going to extend a loan on the car that long.
Well, it wouldn't be part of it, it wouldn't be a loan on the car, it would be the whole
Yeah.
combined bond.
That's not a total cost of the car itself, but you outfit the,
Right, but you still borrow $40,000.
I understand that, but
No,
when
we're not
borrowing.
when you got a retooled car,
Right, you buy the
you're
car.
gonna take, you go from stuck one part to the other.
Okay.
Somebody physically has to do that, because it all has to be
Understand.
certified, stuff like that. So that's
But
all.
that's all included in this $40,000.
Right, but we're not borrowing new money. Please just clarify.
No, but the money, I do understand this, we've gone through this before many times. We have the money already in bonded before. But again, we pay on those bonds year after year after year. So again, my thought is just, to me, it'd be cheaper to lease than it would be to spend $40,000 in bond money.
Not necessarily. It will be new money that we would have to do a lease, right? And it will cost us a hell of a lot more than the 40,000. We probably pay back the leasing company close to 50,000 by the time we're said and done. Rather than using money that's sitting in capital,
$50,000 lease car.
45,000, whatever the number is, right? We're gonna pay him more than the 40,000 that's sitting there that we could spend without raising taxes. So why wouldn't we do it the way we're doing it?
Well, because then, if you have money today, the bond fund that you already bond, you already have the money, you're not rebonding for it, but you're paying every year on that bond that's already established, correct?
Whether we
agree with
spend
that?
it or not,
Whether we
yes.
spend it or not.
Yeah, we already have the money.
Right.
Okay, great, I agree with that. And we're gonna pay year after year after year on that bond. However it may be, I don't know, what's the year of a bond, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is. If you take that cash and you buy a police car,
Right, the vehicle, again, it's one bond, but the vehicle has a specific, you can't, the bond council won't let you bond the vehicle that long. It's got a max of a life of,
Oh, your
7
argument
years.
would be right if we were borrowing new money
Right.
on 10 years, you
if
would
you
be
the money that we already
absolutely right.
have, we're already paying on that month after month.
So
or
what
month.
do you suggest we do?
Well, I just have
We
to
need a
question
car.
about leasing, right, that's all.
We need a
It's
car.
cheaper to lease.
And it might be if we didn't already have the money sitting in the bank and we're already paying the
Right.
interest on it.
What do you suggest we do?
wait, hold on,
I was just asking a question, did anybody look at what it costs to lease a car?
Well, it's
I didn't do that, no,
it's
I'm
very
asking a question.
difficult, because what we're all accustomed to is these leases with 15,000, 20,000 a year. And this type of use, the mileage on the vehicles, I think are about 50,000 miles a year. We would go over any kind of allotment, and then any type of, you have these fender benders and you have scrapes, all those things are things that are cost to put it back. And then finally, the other thing is, and I believe the borough does this, when the police vehicles are sort of at the end of their useful life, they are often considered to be turned over to other departments for use, which you couldn't do any of those things if you had a leased vehicle. That's the way I look at it from a legal perspective.
all our construction department vehicles are all police cars. But to answer your question, yes, the chief of police does the analysis on lease comparison to using his existing funds, and it's more cost effective than we were doing.
Which is, Fred, just so you know, where I work, we lease a car, we keep cars 5 years, and we put a minimum of 150,000 miles on it before we turn it back in. So you can't get leases with more than 15,000 miles a year.
Sure.
Does happen.
Corporate leases are different than
Yes.
residential.
Item D.
Sure.
Okay. Now, these 4 items, Dodge pickup, the jackhammer compressor, the Kubota, backhoe loader. Now, this is all part of the plan for the DPW to take over the water and sewer repairs going forward?
Yes,
All these items?
correct.
Now, what do we, just curious, I mean, I know I've seen trucks plow before, we have the Mason dumps, what do we need a 3,500 dually pickup truck?
This is a utility body truck. The water department currently has 3 vehicles.
Okay?
1 utility, 2 pickups. One pickup is on its last leg, and that will be,
Okay.
put the rest,
10 years old, 15 years old, how old is it?
one, I believe, is 1998, I think.
Oh.
98.
So it's going to be a utility body truck?
Yes.
Okay, we're not going to buy another dually right around town.
No, it's,
I mean, just to clarify, we
Yeah.
just jumped items, right? We went from
Well, I'm on C and D.
400.
I'm on C and D.
well, actually,
Is that okay? I mean,
D
I'm
has
not-
nothing to do. We're in public hearing on
We
item,
just jumped items.
Wait, wait,
But
just-
the rest of the.
Oh, no, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
follow.
we're on public
Yeah.
hearing for item 11,
Right.
A2, which is public hearing for the $420,000 general capital surplus ordinance.
This is the,
Item D
this is
has
what
nothing to do with that.
Okay, but I'm looking at it to say you open it for items, you open it here.
Correct.
Part of 11.
Item, well, let me
For
just,
420.
The
item,
question is, do I need to sit down?
no, no, no.
No, I just want to make sure. that-
Oh, okay.
that
Well,
we
there's
said that
actually,
we
there's
jumped.
no, public discussion on item D technically was an early public discussion, because that's not related to the
I
ordinance.
asked that question, Am I gonna?
No, and that's why you're fine. Right. I just want to distinguish
Okay.
the question, the 4 items under item D have
Oh.
nothing to do with the capital ordinance 21-2000.
I had questions on C. We went through this,
Correct.
and answered all my questions.
Now you're on D.
Okay, now I'm on D.
That's fine.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're
Just so
perfectly
the
fine.
audience knows,
Okay.
those 2 items, 2 separate items.
Correct.
Sorry.
There's 2 separate funding sources.
Now we're talking about item D, which is the capital item under utility. And now, just real quick, so everybody knows, I'm sorry to get people confused, but we're talking about the plan to take the DPW, start making our own repairs,
Correct.
correct?
Well, our 3 existing water department employees plus DPW.
Right. Okay. Jack, I already understand. Now, if we have a backhoe with a loader, why do we need a promoter?
When we sat down with the Rocco for the Water Department,
I'm sorry, the what?
Rocco for the Water, Superintendent for the Water
Okay.
Department, and when we sat down and talked with him, the Kubota is a small machine, obviously. When they're doing curb blockers and stuff like that, they went with a big machine, they make a huge hole. They have a smaller machine, we go into the curb block, we put everything back the way it is, so the residents are happy.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, does John's lawn service use a lot when they work on the street? I don't think
On
they
the
do.
streets,
No, the streets would be the bigger.
curbside.
Right, we have the back.
Curbside.
Right.
When they do the
Curb
curb
boxes.
boxes, stuff like that have to be replaced, all the valves.
Fire hydrants.
Fire hydrants.
Okay.
Stuff that's on people's property.
Right, but you can't dig with the road.
It's an excavator.
As to what?
So that's just-
It just has a bucket on the front.
Okay, an excavator on the back.
Excavator.
Right, now, then let's go there on the back.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Question here. We move forward with this. Okay? Now, you answered my question on D, but this is related to the capital part of it, I guess the approval of it to move forward. Am I still okay with that?
Go ahead.
A while back, a few months back, we discussed the fact of getting job descriptions and performance appraisal, performance plans for people. Now, to be honest, and again, don't take this the wrong way, I'm not picking on the DPW. There's 2 parts to this. I do have a concern that we buy all this equipment, okay? Now, how do we roll this out? I mean, the question is that I think it's a good time now to do a lot of expensive equipment. To be honest, if people aren't careful, someone could get hurt. You know, there's something to this. It's not just something like, you pick something up and do it. I mean, how are we trained?
Okay, well, our DPW has a full-time machine operator.
Okay.
Who is trained in.
We have a backhoe today?
Yes,
We do.
yes. Needs about $14,000 worth of repairs. It's 20-some-odd years old. And we will not put a new penny, another penny, into that backhoe.
Okay.
That backhoe is unable to dig the street, because it's just because of its condition. So that's
Right.
used in the yard to load salt, to load stone, to load mulch, whatever the case may be.
We deem that not worth return.
Correct, we will keep it as a yard unit, but when it, part of my French, craps out, it's done. It'll go, well, it'll go in gov ops, we'll get a few bucks for it. But we will not put another penny into it. So we have a machine operator.
Back to the issue, job descriptions, performance plan.
Right.
I mean, with rolling this out, I mean, we talked about this before, this issue came up months ago. I mean, is this a good time to move forward with this?
Again, we have a machine operator who's trained, number 1. Number 2, our utility workers, they've been touching this kind of work with subcontracted labor. So it's not new to them.
No,
The new part is
I
we'll be
say
doing.
this, John, with
Yeah.
the fact that
No.
the end thing here is safety liability.
Of course.
versus town.
Of course.
Okay? I just, you know what, again, I'm not,
I can tell you.
these are union people, right?
Yes.
I can tell you, one of our water department employees, he's got, he's certified in confined space. He knows how to work underground. He knows how to operate a machine. And he knows the water side of it. And I can assume they are still working with Phil Learning. They've done 2 water breaks on their own. And we saved them 13, they came back. This is how we're kind of going this direction, because they're coming back with dollars that we're saving.
Right.
So the savings will pay for in my eyes, will pay for the expense.
We're up to,
They are up to speed, I will say 80% in their training machine operator, other than our full-time machine operator. Just personally, I know people have been out watching them, they know what they're doing, they know how to saw, road cut, They just want to saw the road cut, so everything's neat and clean. They're doing it right. Might take a little bit longer, but they're doing it right. And they're under supervision of Rocco, and actually Phil Barrett has still been guiding them in the right direction.
Now, Phil Barrett, if I understand correctly, he's going to be over the bridge, correct? Excuse me? Phil Barrett, Barrett the plumber, right? He's the one who is actually gives the final blessings, all the work that we do, correct? Is he going to stay with us going
No,
forward?
we don't need a licensed plumber.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
Certain regs,
Don't need a licensed plumber.
Correct.
Okay, so at this point going forward, as time progresses, our DPW can take care of all the water and all the sewer.
Correct.
And we therefore eliminate the contract.
Correct.
All right, no, those are my questions. I would just still consider the Kubota. I mean, you know what? It might be a little bit smaller, but you know what? It's 50 grand. So I think, 50,000 is 50,000.
Absolutely, and if I may, Al, just for the record, this, and I'm on the record numerous times, even last year stating this, with the influx of revenue from Avalon Bay, the utility permits for $1.1 million, or make those 4 items is a direct investment from that revenue. Just for the record.
No, it's fine. I'm not
Bonding, not borrowing, and we still have an excess of $900,000. Yeah.
just going to welcome to Kubota, and going back from my other job,
Yes.
all right? When we create damage on people's property, all right, it becomes a mess. And that mess becomes an expense, and you have to have somebody that the customer likes to come back and fix things the way they want. If we have the right machinery, we do it properly, there will be a minimal amount of complaints and expense on that side. So you have to weigh one to the other.
No, I'm just curious. I mean, you know what, we make sure we add this to the additional items in the future. We get okay, covered. Is that okay?
And that's usually part of a report anyway.
Okay.
But just before you go, to date, 2 small water main breaks, a fire hydrant, and a few curb boxes, we've saved in excess of $20,000 to date in subcontracted labor.
John, what do we pay a year for contractor costs? Water and sewer break.
Average $150,000.
We spend that a year?
Average.
Yeah.
That's what we spent last year. I mean, if you did a 10-year average, probably $85,000.
Yeah.
10-year average. But last year was about.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Again, we're still, Mr. Tracy, come on up, we're still on public discussion for the capital bond ordinance, $420,000. Yes, sir.
Speak to something that Al said.
Just directly here.
Yeah, Tom Tracy, 150 Rapkin Road. Something that Al said, very important. I'm in manufacturing, and I can drive a forklift, but that doesn't mean that I'm certified to drive a forklift. I think what Al was saying, please be sure that everybody in this town, when they work for what they're doing, is certified, and they, is that the right word, Al?
Yeah, certified.
I'm sorry.
I think it's like,
Being a manufacturing guy, I can drive around a forklift. But if I get into an accident in my manufacturing facility and I'm not certified, that's a big loss.
Absolutely, and if I may, I'll just jump right in. I am the safety officer for the borough. And Jane can attest to it in my new beginning here, how serious I am about this issue. And Fred, as the joint insurance fund, our insurance, one of the joint insurance fund's attorneys, can attest to the amount of training that the JIF, Joint Insurance Fund, offers all their members. And I must say, I require a minimum of 6 training sessions per quarter per department. Okay? And whether it be from construction site protection, properly blocking roads, flagging, machine operation, CDL, as I'm sure you assume, our employees are drug tested regularly. All that's in place. It may not be talked about on a public forum because there's really no need to, but all that is part of the operation, and it's in place. And the training at our available to us is abundant, and we take advantage of every single opportunity, including machine operation.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. Fred, anything on that? And then everybody thumbs it up.
It runs the gamut of all the training that's available as part of being a member of the MEL. It's at no additional cost. It is, I've seen the difference. And there's a correlation, which publications the MEL puts out, the training versus the safety and the results, and it's a direct correlation.
Correlation with claims, and to your point. Yeah, but no, I appreciate the comments. It's It's a priority in this borough, an absolute priority. Anyone else have any comments on ordinance 21, 2013? Seeing no one, I have a motion to close.
So, second.
Mono Yazdi, and I need a motion for adoption.
So moved.
Yazdi, Del Ripa, any further discussion?
I'm kind of confused with the agenda because I think 2013, 21 also should encompass a discussion on C and D.
Well, D has nothing to do with D. D was in the budget.
If number 2, if this is defeated, then how do you finance this other?
Then those items would die.
Right, so the discussion revolves around this motion also. Here's my question, and Ray, you were there, I think Rich was there, we got a wonderful document from our chief of police, and his recommendation was to lease a vehicle. In that document, it was to lease a vehicle, and we discussed how great it is to lease and then turn them in and lease. That was in his
John,
recommendations.
there's a thing called a dollar buyout lease. Whether you pay $1 or you pay 0, like a loan, it's the same thing. So what he's referring to is a dollar buyout lease, same as a loan. We don't have to do any of that. We have the money in capital. Why go borrow money?
So when we sat down and discussed this with the budget committee, that discussion didn't come up. It was like, yeah, leasing is a great idea, let's do it. When did this change?
We didn't have the capital set aside.
Exactly. I'm just wondering when all that changed from the budget committee. So you're saying it changed because we get this money from a bond that we're reallocating, correct?
Right, nothing's changed in the sense that the chief needs new cars. right?
Exactly,
We used to be
yes.
on the cycle of every 3 years and then
Right.
we
We
shot,
had
so
a
we're
long
catching up.
discussion about it.
So, but the chief didn't realize, when that discussion was had, that we were going to amend this capital ordinance and provide it through this fund. Once this is approved, bond council's going to put the bond on this. They're not going to let us finance this car for more than, I believe it's 7 years, 6 or 7 years. We can't bond this 20 years. Okay, remember, we're doing a new, we're taking existing funds and reauthorize it, okay? And that will have a cap on the amount of time we can pay it. And it's more cost effective, no mileage limitations, that we can do than leasing it through a dollar buyout program.
I just didn't understand when the philosophy changed because it seemed so into it. I didn't realize that this is what it
If you
changed.
didn't have this money, you have to lease it.
You would have
That's
to
the
lease.
least amount of impact you
Okay,
do to your
so-
current operating budget.
So my question on doing this is, most of this money comes from money that was unused for Main Street?
I think a lot of it was old Main Street bonds.
Yeah, old Main Street bonds. So you can take that money and reallocate it anywhere you
Once
want?
it's permanent bonded, yes.
Once it's permanent
We
bonded,
cancel
you don't
this
have to
debt.
go with what you had originally planned?
No, because once it's permanent, you can't do it with a note. Once it's permanently bonded, you cancel the debt. So we canceled this debt back in March, right? And now we're reallocating
Okay.
in the budget.
Now, I know from the discussion when this was first introduced that we had a lot of discussion about the $150,000. It was kind of like in one lump for maintenance and improvements. And it seems to me that number C has taken that and defined it
Correct,
more carefully to what exactly that money is going to be done.
correct.
Okay, now, these amounts in here, are they from, where did they, like, I guess let me go to the video equipment. I mean, I was so impressed when I attended a Riverdale meeting, because they had it in the ceiling, and you could look over on the wall, and it was a beautiful thing.
Which is what we're planning on doing.
Is that what you're planning
This
on doing?
price came from Spartech, our IT company. And Ray worked hard getting proposals.
State
Yeah.
contract.
It's that type of thing that will be permanently,
Yes,
and that you got the price of 5,000?
Yes.
And these prices are pretty well defined. They seem like
State
such
contract price.
such round numbers.
Right.
And I think like the computers, 5 computers, they're not like computers like we buy, are they?
They're business computers.
They're different than my Apple and my Dell? Because 5 computers for $7,500 seems like a lot. No?
Well, business computers are a few dollars more.
it's the memory, it's the software. I mean,
Okay, so it isn't just
Professional
going,
ordering.
Installation also.
You gotta buy the licenses, it's.
Right, so it was-
I thought it was actually good.
That was going to be what office, so I was looking at it. There's a lot of software that needs to be updated along with the hardware.
That's really the explanation that I
And
really,
then also, there's a 3-year warranty that purchase.
okay.
Can I make a statement?
Drives up the cost.
All of this that Mrs. Shortman is talking about here, all of this should be in front of us. In order to make intelligent decisions, we should have all this literature in front of us, what we're looking at. What are these 5 computers? What's the brand name on them? What's the makeup on them? What is the RAM? What is the memory and all that with it? I'm looking at a jackhammer compressor, Kubota, and again, that's a later discussion. I have no idea what the return on investment of that is. I have nothing in front of me showing what kind of money we're saving. You're saying 13,000, that's just, you're saying, I have nothing in front of me, I see no comparisons. So how can I make an intelligent decision without having information in front of me on how we want to spend the money?
Okay, I mean, everything here has been quoted by either department head. Okay.
But we haven't seen anything. All we see is $5,000 for video equipment. What is it? You're telling me it's a smart board, it's...
To mayors, I mean, defense.
Did you send me an email? How about send an email?
Months ago, and the email said, if you have questions,
I did send
come
it.
see me.
I sent the numerous emails. This is what we're doing
Yeah.
now. Any questions, come see me.
Same.
And,
I've seen a couple of, I have not seen all of these things. I've seen a couple of these things. Last time I talked about the backhoe, we were looking at getting something for $20,000.
Yeah, that's what that was gonna be.
that was, right, that was, no, not 20,000, never 20,000.
Yeah, well, it was 19, it was 16,000, we get to use them.
We had a $19,000 opportunity through another utility, but that fell through. They're no longer selling it. Then it became 40,000 from Mr. Spellman. And that, he decided not to sell the John Deere. He's still selling the Cat, which is 35,000. But it's 7 years old, you know, and I'm putting forth to the council, and Mike ultimately vote yes or no, to make the investment on the new one and stop buying someone else's problem, because that's the history of this book. Now, as far as other things, you have to be comfortable relying on those who are putting the numbers before you, which is either myself or the department head. And if you're not, then you vote no. If you are comfortable with relying on who's putting it in front of you, then I'd ask for your support. It took a lot of work to get to where we are. And I'm just putting this all on here in one fell swoop for 2 reasons. We want to move on it. It's almost July, and all of this is necessary. Number 2, I don't want it ever coming back and biting me that the governing body didn't vote on something. Because, again, this is a bond ordinance identifying what's being done to date. This doesn't total the full bond amount. Okay, so if there are other things on a list that I don't have pricing on, that I will come back to you. For example, what's not on this list is filing cabinets, conference table, additional generators for pumping stations and whatnot. So I have on this list asking for authority, what I have numbers on, which I've been working on these numbers since January. So if you're not comfortable because you don't see anything, you have to rely on my recommendation or vote no. But you have everyone's had every opportunity, numerous emails from me, as recent as Friday. Hey guys, here's what's on the agenda. I listed it verbatim. Anyone had the opportunity to come see the proposals, even prior to that. But anyway, that's just understating that for Rick.
So there's another $50,000 that
I didn't even, so whatever the total
could be
is.
spent, but you're telling us, unlike all the other things, you will come to us and then tell us what you're going to be doing with
Correct.
that
I stated that on the
50,000.
record at our last meeting, and I'm proving it here.
I didn't think a police vehicle was as much as 40, did we?
It's not just a vehicle.
I know, the whole outfit.
Probably
Exactly.
10, 12 grand just on the lights and the lighting and
So
the
I thought that
radios.
he explained all that to us. and
I
I
can tell you, a radio, just from my experience buying a radio, is about $5,500 not installed.
Well, this is another item, it's radios for police.
That's a whole different
That's
setup.
not the
That's the
same.
emergency thing that we're trying to work in with the schools, Salvation Army. That's a whole different, that has nothing to do with cars.
Are they going to help us? Did they say they could help us?
School.
That they help us?
They gave us $10,000. It's $30,000 project.
Okay.
Let's,
Well,
again,
I just want to say that it's such a good idea to sit and talk about it and not always rely on come in and talk to us and get emails. But, I've always, in the past, councils have worked with work sessions. where all these questions would be asked and everything would be, you know, out there before you get to a meeting and adopt something like this.
Councilwoman, I'm going to interrupt you, and I apologize for doing so. Item 2, generator for DPW. We have been talking about this for 3 years. 3 years. So it's not new. This is not the first time anyone's
Dollars are
sitting here.
That's what's new.
The dollars are new.
Dollars are true.
The dollars are true.
Exactly, but when you talk about a generator, a lot of us think, you know,
Radios,
$2,000.
radios. You know, we've been talking about that, knowing that June, which has passed, our next bill expires. We're waiting on the license, but we need to dedicate 15 or 45,000 because we're getting funding from other sources to pay for that. Video equipment, hillside, stormwater. We have people's driveways caving in. Okay, it's stormwater, not utility. People's driveways on hillside caving in. This poor 2 residents problem has existed for 6, 7 years. This is a price from our engineer. Computers, again, Jane, you're on a computer every day, I am. They're 10 years old. We went to Spartech, our IT guy who prices through state contract. If you need,
Comparison, right? You look into the
Ray's the computer guy, that's what he does. I mean, for a living. If I can't trust that's the right RAM and right everything, Mike, then I don't know where I'm going, because that's who did the work. Curb on Union Ave. I must get 5 calls a week, or when it rains, that was the county paid, not last time, 7 years ago, they didn't mill, and everyone on Union Ave floods. So I said to our engineer, what would it cost me to run sidewalks from the Luke Oil to Oak Street? Curb, excuse me, just curb. That's where that number came from. Fence for dumpster. We pass an ordinance. Must fence in your dumpsters. Well, we have one in the back, borough property. Fire alarm. Our DPW building does not have a fire alarm. We have over $250,000 worth of equipment in the garage with no fire alarm. Now this one may be new to you, but I'm putting it in front of you, and that price is $5,700. Please read it. That's what's on the list. So it's, I don't understand. If you're uncomfortable, you vote no. I'm hoping it passes so I can begin making these
What I'm
changes.
saying is it's a good thing to have these conversations and to hear the details.
That's why it's on the agenda.
Exactly. Exactly, but it wasn't on the agenda with the first time we voted on it, and I think it's a good move. I like what we're doing. One of my questions about the capital items for the utility is where are we going to put all this equipment? Do we have room for it?
We have the old coal shed at DPW, the old water department shed.
And that'll work for all this.
Yes.
You mentioned the an operator's going to operate the backhoe. A couple of citizens asked about it. Is that the same operator that does the street sweeping?
Well, he's our primary machine operator, but as John alluded to, our foreman is also, actually, both our superintendent and foreman. We have 3 qualified, trained people who can operate that. One who operates our street sweeper, our water foreman, and our water superintendent.
And this list came from your meeting with them
Absolutely.
and asking them what they recommend.
This list changed
They did
5
research,
times.
they went back and forth, and they came down with some numbers. I know for a fact that the water department, they went to the motor dealer up in Newton, they sat, they did the research, and they came back, this is what they came back. There's a lot of times that they look.
Is there a state contract for this person?
There is all state contract. It's either state contract or co-op. As you can see down below, under new business, we're going to be authorizing at no cost to the borough to enter into a Middlesex regional cooperative, like we are the Morris County Co-op. Well, the Kubota was not part of Morris County Co-op, so we're joining Middlesex Co-op to be able to get the Kubota at state contract pricing, co-op pricing. And again, the elected state, your comments, and I absolutely appreciate that, is that I have my qualified people and department heads who deal with this on a day-to-day. Rocco, our superintendent, Frank Newberger, our foreman, spent months putting these proposals together. It's not like we just,
I think what
jumped on it.
Mike's-
We've been
That was the first time I heard about Kubota.
talking about that for a long time.
Maybe you've been talking about it. That's the first time I'm hearing about it. It was Thursday, and I picked up my...
Well, I'll answer any questions you might have, but I respectfully disagree. That's the first.
But I think what Mike's getting at, is you actually saw the proposals from you, be more comfortable.
Exactly.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, everything's here. Take a break, do them now. We're not even at that point. We're in the middle of public discussion on a general capital ordinance that has nothing to do with the items of my discussion. So let's, because we could discuss on your motion to authorize additional. You still have an open motion for 21-2013, which is the capital, nothing to do with the utility stuff. So is there any further discussion on that? Okay, we're in a motion. So I need this is ordinance 21-2013. I need a roll call for adoption. General capital surplus warrant.
Councilmember Sondemire.
This is just to appropriate the 420 to the general
Yes,
capital.
it's nothing to do with the utility.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Delariva.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, item C is I'm seeking authorization to move forward on various projects from that $420,000 general capital surplus. You can state authorization to approve capital items from bond ordinance 21. And this approval would be contingent on the advertising requirements, so nothing could be done until it's advertised, which is within 10 days. You'll advertise it right away, but I've got to go through that process. My point is, I could wait till June 25th, but then we just delay the process. We have our paver in town doing roads in 2012. I want him to finish here while he's here 2013. We need to move on this. Generator. We had a hurricane, had no power. We just can't delay these things. So, this motion is to allow me to take these proposals that were developed by our department heads, some by Ray, some by myself, all through state contract, to move forward. And you can see, defined in the bond ordinance, 230,000 not to exceed, because that's the amount of the bond ordinance for roads. And those I've emailed numerous times, all the roads. Generator, radios, video, hillside, computers, curbs, fence, fire alarm, and a police car. Is anyone going to make that motion?
So moved.
So this amount is not to exceed.
Correct. Seconded by Rich Delariva. Is there any further discussion?
Is that a resolution, or are we just?
I just not reading out my motion.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Which might make people more comfortable. I know you have this, I know you have documentation. Can you get that documentation to Mike? To see exactly what, I'm in favor of doing all this, but I think we'd be more comfortable, or he'd be more comfortable, if you saw the backup that you have for this. And I know we talked before, some of the numbers are less, actually.
Well, no, I did 98,000 on the backhoe. It's $97,975.
Right, I'm just, I think we'd be more comfortable.
We're not voting on that now.
No, I'm talking about the stuff that we're talking
So
about.
what do you say? Don't vote on it?
No, I want to vote on it, but I think when he has the backup coming, he might make an easier decision.
That's,
All right?
Yes.
of course, I mean, but it's at anyone's,
Yes, it is, I agree with
you know, view. And past emails and as recent as Friday was exactly, here's what's going to be on the agenda. Any questions, let me know. And we had since Friday till 8:45 p.m. Tuesday. I reviewed
Yes,
this.
we didn't get it Friday there.
So, okay, is there any further discussion? Need a roll call, please.
Councilmember Yazdi.
Yes.
Conklin. Tomato.
Yes.
Delariva.
Yes.
Shortman.
Yes.
Sondemire.
No.
Okay, motion carries. Item D, authorization for capital items under utility. Again, here is 2013 Dodge Ram. Explained in earlier public discussion, the need. What we're doing here, this will become one of our laborer's trucks. The laborer's truck will become the superintendent's truck, and the superintendent's truck is shot, but will be used as a yard truck at DPW, as an extra plow truck for smaller areas. Jackhammer compressor, Kubota, and backhoe. Who makes that motion?
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is ridiculous. We should be able to be used equipment. The used equipment market is huge out there right now. We're gonna have $19,000 backhoe, and we really don't have anybody that's capable of running.
And I
with the Kubota, 2,000 for Kubota.
Sir, this equipment will be paid for in less than 2 years by labor saved and subcontract labor. I'm sorry? I do know that.
And then you're gonna need a concrete saw, you're gonna need a compactor, you're gonna need a roller, now you're gonna need a trailer, to carry this equipment around. And now you're gonna need a truck to pull the trailer with, you're gonna be looking at $500,000 by the time it goes there.
No, that's not true. The trucks are placed to pull a trailer. The trailer and saw cutter in their normal operating budget, not at a capital. So,
You don't have a saw, you don't have a saw to, hammer a curb line.
it was in their current operating budget. They've already purchased the saw.
How much was that?
Rocco priced it through state contract. That was through their current operating budget, not capital. That was through their operating budget. I
And then
disagree.
what happens when you go to somebody's house and you pull a gas man out of somebody's house for a bucket, and the gas man pulls out like what happened up on Catherine Street, and the house blew up.
Okay,
Mark's gonna be liable.
Mark, I respect, behind me here, I respect your position, but it's kind of a contradiction from your position for the last 3 years. You were one of the most vocal people that we have to stop this increased subcontracted labor, and here's exactly what we're doing. Now you have a problem.
$500,000 on equipment.
We're not-
You can buy something beautiful used equipment out there.
We are spending under $200,000 for equipment that is overdue.
This family does not need a $98,000 back. That's
Okay, so you're at
or
work,
$50,000
Yeah.
quote, $20,000 quote would work.
you're entitled to your position.
Mr. Mayor, we
Bloomingdale's
say,
history, let me finish. Bloomingdale's history is doing exactly what you said. And do you know how much money we put into that used backhoe? Do you think we should buy today? A 10-year backhoe for $30,000? You know how much money we put into that? We,
Just jump in and spend $100,000 in the backhoe, it's gonna sit there pretty much 5 days a week.
so is it, Mark, is it make the investment or is it stay with subcontracted work? You're,
Well, no, make an investment, but don't spend all this money, don't spend $98,000 in the backhoe.
and that's your position. The only way to get a decent machine, you're gonna spend 50 grand. And in 2 years, you're gonna have someone else's problems. That's exactly what the borough's experienced. The backhoe we have now, that is a 1998, we paid for it 3 times because of exactly what you're saying. And I'll finally recommend it because we have the surplus from Avalon Bay. I couldn't be any more clearer for the last year and a half that we're gonna take that revenue and make this investment. That's what we're
Let's put
doing.
it back to the infrastructure, why don't you give us some money back under the sewer?
That's a great idea.
Instead of putting $98,000.
That's a great idea, but this isn't gonna do it. This isn't gonna do that. This is to make an investment to lower your operating costs. The reason rates are high, we have this discussion too, is because of our debt to the sewer authority. It's not changing. That's not changing.
Mr. Mayor, we
The only
say,
thing that'll change that is more users,
we
which I lobbied for 10 years. More users.
you mentioned we saved money over the last couple of years.
$20,000 to date.
What
2
kind of
small
machine
bricks.
do
They
have
rented,
rent?
they rented a Kubota.
Why did they make it worth it? What do we need? We spent $50,000 on it, what can't we do?
We save what? If we save 20,000 on 2 bricks, how many bricks does it take
How do you
before
know
we
you saved
pay for
20,000?
50?
How do you know you saved 20,000 with 2 bricks? How do you know that?
Because I calculated the labor of our staff with parts compared to the labor rate of the subcontracting we've been doing for 20 years, and the average of a 10-year analysis, and that's what we said.
So how many does it take before we get to 50?
Yeah.
$300,000 in equipment here, so
5 for the Kubota. How many more before we get to the savings for the backup? How many brakes did you have last year?
100-something thousand.
150,000.
Year before, did we have 65,000?
But if you're spending the same 150,000 in machinery that we can do it now for the next 10, 15 years, doesn't it make sense? Don't you in your business invest in tools?
That's why I try not to buy tools. I hate to buy tools because, I rent them, I have them, I go to my shop, I spend $100,000 of tools sitting in the store. I hate to say, this is what's in the back of it, they're gonna sit in the yard rust, they're never use it. It's gonna be $98,000.
We spent $150,000 of subcontracted labor last year. How can you sit there and state we're never going to use backup? This is
$150,000 on the Kubota, he's talking about the backhoe.
How many automatic brakes do we have left here?
You're talking 2 pieces of equipment for $150,000.
right, and we spent, and they use, the subcontracted labor uses both. big truck, the big backhoes used to dig the roads, the small ones used for curb boxes and fire hydrants or smaller breaks.
I understand, I'm in this business.
I know that, and that's why I appreciate your comments. You were one of the most vocal people in 2011 and 12 not to stop this subcontracted labor.
I think subcontract labor is abusing us, and we're charging, if you ever, I'm sure you look at the bills, they're astronomical. We're renting an air compressor for $50 an hour. You can go to Renters Unlimited and rent it for $135 for a 24-hour period. And they charge us overtime, they charge us double on Sunday for it, it's inanimate object.
Mark, you've been here 2 years and 6 months, and apparently you haven't done anything about that. To your point, you're upset with what the subcontracted labor has done, and you've done nothing about it. Here we are doing something about it. This is the opportunity to do something about it, and that's what I'm putting in front of you. You either support it or you don't.
Rentals Unlimited is not open at 3 in the morning. The road water goes down.
It doesn't come with the labor.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning, the water break happens. You wait till the morning anyway, but you're going to wait 4 or 5 hours for more.
It's not,
All right, guys,
it's not a
that's,
good one.
those are internal things that I rely on the department to resolve. What I'm asking you to do is make the investment that I think we should be making into our utility. I would guess it's 10, 15 years since this town's made an investment into any sort of capital improvement to help our utility. 15 years. Tell me what they want. Every truck is 15, 20 years old. They have no tools. That's why we subcontract everything. And look at a 10-year history. We've spent close to $1 million in subcontracted work. To sit here and not justify $200,000 to stop that bleeding is what I'm putting in front of you. You make the choice. Any further discussion? I need a roll call, please. I'm sorry.
I think that I do support going in this direction of using our utility and stopping with the subcontracted workers. We seem to have the personnel to do it. But I think that before we take this step and spend this kind of money, I think because we have over $1 million, we're jumping in with big price tags. And I think that there should be investigation as to what's available on the used market and carefully reviewing that before we spend $232,000 on 4 items. That's a lot of money. Not saying we shouldn't do it, but let's go out there and find out what's out there right
Councilwoman,
now.
I respect your comments, but due diligence has been done.
Well, we
I have
don't
had
need-
our mechanics look at 4 used units, ranging from $35,000 to $55,000. Okay? And I am putting in front of you the option of purchasing new, because that's the investment that should be made. Sure, it's a big number, but a governing body about time has to have the backbone to make the decision and make the investment. We can't let these big numbers scare us, especially when we have the revenue from Avalon Bay, which we stated on the public record is going to be used to directly invest in our infrastructure. These are the decisions that are going to make a difference, not stopping the progress, not making the investment. And due diligence was done. You're sitting there like I just said here, $98,000 backhoe, go buy one. Since January, all of these numbers in C and D have been worked on by me and the department heads. Since January. And like I said, I've had our 2 mechanics look at 4 used units, and I'm not going to support and put in front of you to vote going to gov bids and buy who knows what you're going to get. I'm putting in front of you to make the investment and buy new, because our utility needs it, and it'll pay for itself in the short term.
And Mr. Mayor, I just have to say, it's so simple to sit here, this number could have been 100,000. To sit here and complain about $100,000 worth of expenses, right? Any number that would have shown up here. It's so simple to sit here and complain about it. This should have been done when we didn't have the money from Avalon Bay. Now that we have the money and it's not costing us anything, why wait? Let's do it, and let's do it right for the first time in our history.
And I want to reiterate one more time. Due diligence has been done on every one of these items. And I state that again, Councilwoman, because I want to clarify, and it's a little bit of an insult. You say, I think we should spend the time before it's been done. That's the only reason it's in front of you.
This is the first I've heard it.
Well, that amazes me, because you read
I
here.
did never have heard of a Kubota before.
Councilwoman, that's not true, and I'm sorry if I'm losing my
For
temper.
$50,000.
Because I sat down with you, I sat down with you, one-on-one, and went through the capital wish list, one-on-one. And I went radios, computers, paving. This was typed in February. And I went curves, so on and so on. Then I had the capital list for utilities, which is right here. I sat with you, one-on-one. 2013 budget items, either in current, bond, or used from canceled old capital. I went through every item with you.
And it says
So-
that it has these prices.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can look at my computer when this Word document was created. And one question, did I or did I not sit with you one-on-one and review this?
I believe you did.
Any other
I still
discussion?
believe that we should have documentation of what you said was done looking for the used, what's on the market.
Okay, well, again, you have my word, and you have two DPW employees that, if you don't believe my word, that you can test that. Any further comments? Need a roll call.
Councilmembers Con. Demotta.
Yes.
Dela Ripa.
Yes.
Short.
No,
Sondemire.
No.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Mayor Denine.
Yes. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll resume at 9:08. Okay, next item, new business. 12A, letter from Tom Neff, Director of Local Government Services in regard to the full-time mayor issue. I will defer to council at this time.
Mayor, we received a letter from the Department of Community Affairs, that's known as the DCA, down in Trenton. We oversee local government. And the letter said that they received a complaint about the changes in the borough ordinance and code regarding the administrator, really the mayor's position and the salary. And they gave us a period of time to respond. The letter was written directly to me as the borough attorney. I responded back and I enclosed for the governing body the 5-page response, just evaluating what was done and explaining it to the DCA. We received a response back from Thomas Neff, who's the Director of Local Government Services of the DCA, who indicated that, based on the information that was provided, DCA found no impermissible actions being taken by the borough, and furthermore, they concluded that there were any other legal issues to adjudicate, and therefore closed this matter, and it also corresponded back to the complaint, who was Ms. Linda Huntley, and indicated that the matter had been closed. So, again, no negative repercussions or concerns expressed by the DCA. Essentially, everything was provided to them, the ordinances, the resolution, and a memorandum of analysis that they were able to review and have on file.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? So, a complaint was filed about the full-time mayor's position, the ordinance done to create that, and the great news is the DCA, Department of Consumer Affairs, finds absolutely nothing wrong with how the borough proceeded and responded to Ms. Huntley exactly with that answer. Thank you very much. 12B, adoption of resolution 2013 6.4. Authorizing borough to enter into a cooperative pricing agreement with Middlesex Regional Educational Services. Again, we are members of multiple co-ops. This is no charge to the borough and allows to access the backhoe needs, but additional items. When we price, now we have a fourth co-op we can go to. So who makes that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? I need a roll call, please.
Councilmembers Demotta.
Yes.
Dela Ripa.
Yes.
Short.
yes,
Sondemire.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Conklin.
Item C, adoption of resolution 2013 6.5, tax identification statement for recycling enhancement grant. Who makes that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion?
Do you know why in our budget our recycling is down, our income for recycling is down this year?
Over last year?
Right.
Again, we don't want to anticipate more revenue than we may receive. I don't know, other than better off being low than too high.
I can imagine some stuff that we're picking up from Sandy on the curbside.
I'm sure part of that, we hope it's greater, but we don't want to anticipate more than the prior year. Again, this is a recycling enhancement grant, has established recycling fund from which tonnage grants may be made to the municipality. We average 2013, I think annually we average roughly 30,000 in revenue from recycling dropped off in our yard. And what's the number annually on our recycling grants?
6,000.
You say like a little less than 10,000. Here, this for 2013 has $8,917.98. So that's what we're doing, is just a tax identification statement for the money received via this grant. So again, there's a motion on the table. Give me a roll call, please.
Councilmembers Delarose.
Yes.
Shortman.
Yes.
Sondemire.
Yes.
Yasi.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Okay, next item, adoption resolution 2013-6.6.
Well, actually, it's 22-4.
I'm sorry?
22-.
The next item,
Oh, I'm sorry.
adoption resolution 2013-6.6. Subordination of the sales mortgage. What this is, when the sewer project was done on Hillside many, many years ago, this particular family we needed to have the borough help them find funding through housing grant, affordable housing type of grant, to pay that assessment. And the grant has been satisfied, so we are releasing that mortgage obligation. Take that motion.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmembers Shortman.
Yes.
Sondemire.
Yes.
Yasi.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Delarose.
Yes.
Okay. Item E, discussion in Rose Fund allocations. Councilwoman Shortman, with the agenda.
Yes, I did. I'd like to make some observations and a statement about the audit trail I received for the road from the Rose Fund. And so I don't forget any of it, I would like to read it. In 2001, we voted to adopt an ordinance establishing the Recreation Open Space Establishment Trust Fund. And this is a quote of what it said, that will be solely dedicated to financing open space preservation and recreational facility development, maintenance, and improvement in Bloomingdale. Since the inception of the Rose Fund, we have kept an open space portion of that tax. An advisory board meets yearly to recommend the percentage for each of the 4 areas financed by the Rose Fund. They are the open space, recreation, recreation maintenance, and discretionary. To date, there has been over $300,000 dedicated to the open space portion, and it has also generated more than $40,000 in interest. In the past 11 years, that has grown and been used, what I would, my opinion, would be appropriately. As of August 2012, there was $246,639.41 in the open space portion. Now that balance is $125,000. Since August, the open space has been charged over $81,000 for DPW salaries, $40,000 for Sandy storm cleanup, for John's lawn service, RER for tub grinding, $17,500. I'm assuming that's the storm. The open space paid $800 for signs. John's cutting lawn service, $4,500. Tri-State Athletic Field, $15,290. And FEMA, over $47,000. The advisory board yearly recommends don't seem to make any difference to the spending in any of these accounts. Funding is made where the dollar is. The council isn't required to follow the advisory board's recommendation. However, it doesn't seem to matter where the dollars are allocated. There is no line between spending. And this has only happened, I believe, since August. I see no purpose to the advisory board even making recommendations when the open space money pays for the items that I previously read. My purpose to bringing this up now is because when I received the audit trail, I was quite surprised at the spending that's taken place since last August, because I was interested in recommending to the council that a committee could study the feasibility of using open space funds in the purchasing of King's Corner. As I talk to people around town, several times people bring up what an eyesore it is, how terrible it is, too bad we can't, just get rid of it and maintain it as open space. I didn't realize so much of open space money was spent since last August. For over 10 years, none of the open space allocation was spent on items that were financed in the last months of 2012. Right now, I would like to make a motion for a resolution that this council use the open space section of the Rose Fund according to 2-65-2 ordinance. And that states B, to finance the acquisition of land and/or development rights of land, the appraisal of such land and/or rights in land, and any other items of expense accrued in connection with any such acquisition or appraisal as may be permitted by law. I make that motion for that resolution.
Second on the motion. Any discussion?
So you're saying that you think we should start taking money and buying pieces of land down on Main Street?
No, I'm saying that my motion is that the open space fund portion, whatever it is, should be used according to the ordinance and not to pay Johnsville Observers and Tri-State Athletic and to buy signs for the fields. I don't see that purpose. The point I made in looking this information up was that, yes, I do think that it isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying we should buy it. I'm saying I was approaching this as a committee to study, looking into trying to do something with that property, just to look into it. But the money has really just been spent now, and in my opinion, not for open
Maybe
space.
I'm looking at this wrong, but the money that she's talking about, and it's approved by this council, a lot of those recommendations, there's maintenance expenses that we have to do currently every year, right? Opening, closing fields, cutting grass, that is yearly maintenance, correct? Right? So I don't see the expenses different from year to year in those areas. You have to pay them wherever it comes from.
They have never been paid from open space, John, never,
You're telling me the opening of the fields with Tri-State has never been paid?
never. Paid from recreation maintenance, or the discretionary line item.
Discretionary line item,
The discretionary line item, I don't have any idea how that's defined, but it has never been the open space portion.
I'll make one statement. Finance pays the bills where the funds are. That's true. And no one here directs what line it comes out. Every bill you just stated in your statement, you have voted on yourself. So all that's been on, no, let me finish. All that's, you finish yours. Every bill you stated, you have voted on. You've all been on the bills list. As far as what line they come from, that's done through our finance department, depending on where the funds are to operate on an annual basis, based on those same recommendations you referred to.
Well, I know you approved those, and I know I did vote on them, and I know our attorney has told me that by voting on these bills, I approve them. However, when I vote on the bills, and I do check the bills list carefully, I see that it comes from the Rose Fund. My negligence is, I guess I can't trust anything on the bill to approve unless I look at the N3 items, and it's either 801, 802, 803, and 804. I have looked at audit trails for years, and I have never seen money used in this way from the open space, And I guess I assumed it wouldn't be. And I have no idea why they would take the money after 10 years. It's never been done. And maybe if the money isn't in the appropriate item, maybe it shouldn't be spent. Because you tell me what the purpose of an advisory board is, who spends their time listening to the public, making their plea for where the money should go. It doesn't matter. We're spending it out of the entire Rose Fund.
Just for the record, the advisory board makes recommendations on work projects that should be done.
And the percentages where they go.
Percentage, right, they don't make a recommendation for where it's paid from. They do not.
There's been a lot of items that the advisory recommends that have been completed.
Sure.
So we're not ignoring it, we're taking our recommendations and getting things done.
But they should not even have to be involved in recommending percentages for the 4 separate parts.
They recommend percentages. They recommend projects. They don't recommend what section an item's paid from. That's done by finance based on the availability of funds.
Well, I disagree with you because I
Obviously,
think,
that's how it's always been.
because when you say, I want 10% in open space, and I read you what the referendum called open space, and in 10 years, it's never been touched for John's Lawn Service and Tri-State and the other items that are now there from last August. My mistake, I didn't do it. My purpose now is to see that it's done, and I will be more careful, but my motion is that it not be done in the future for the rest of this year, however long this motion or this resolution would be. I think that people see a lot of money in something and they go, oh, there's the money, let's spend it. And you know what, we have enough open space, we don't need it. But when you have money that you've saved and along comes an opportunity to maybe see something you didn't know was possible, like looking at King's Corner in a different way. And right now, maybe I know it's been on the market for the 3 years I've been on the council, and nobody seems to be interested in it. It is an eyesore in town. Maybe it isn't going to work that way. But when something comes along and all the money's gone out of open space, you have no recourse to buy anything. And when I looked at the beginning of this year, and I saw that there was like $249,000, and all of a sudden, beginning of 2012, and in the beginning of 2011, it's down to 135 when you actually, examine it. We have spent $125,000 on things that would ordinarily be spent out of recreation maintenance, or even discretionary.
How much of that was FEMA related, storm related?
How much of it was FEMA?
Quite a bit, is my point. So, if the borough has an emergency like a hurricane, you have whatever the expenses may be related to, open space or recreation damages. How else are they going to fund it? If it's not in recreation maintenance because it's an emergency, and the open space is the only line that has a balance in it, that's where finance is going to go and pay the bill. Otherwise, you're going to bond it as an emergency, or you're going to have to go to your current operating budget.
No, you're going to come to this council and say, there's an emergency. Would you approve paying, because of Sandy, would you approve that we take this out of open space, and then this body would decide that?
No, but past emergencies were done that way. They were done that way.
Well,
You still need deposit money, you still need to fund, you still need to pay that bill in that given year. So when you have an emergency in the year, okay, you fund it, and then it's the next year you have to find that money. Okay, so your motion is open space should accumulate and just be for acquisition of open space.
yes, for the rest of this year. And
That's your
if
motion.
people disagree with that, then don't even bother asking a committee to tell us what should go in each. Because, John, look at the audit trail. There's no difference. It depends on where you want to go with Tri-State and where you want to
It's
go.
finance. No one here.
No, it shouldn't be
makes that
finance.
determination.
Finance should not be dictating our money. If it is done, and Jeremy's certainly been here long enough to know, we've never taken that money out of open space. The very least she can do is go to you. You're the mayor, you operate using all the business administrators'
You just said, well, this was
responsibilities.
11 and 12. I haven't,
This happened from August on, right through the end of the year.
I've been authorizing increases, obviously.
Well, I think there's something wrong with what's happening in our finance department then. If you can actually go there and take money out of something where not any council, no matter who sat here, has ever done this before. I mean, it's obvious.
It was August of
that-
last year, is what you're saying.
August of last year.
And I-
We have $200,000 sitting in open space.
Sure.
And you want to buy King's Corner with that money?
And I want to what?
You want to buy King's Corner with that money and take that
I would like to have a committee study it. I didn't say I wanted to do it. It's an opportunity to look at it.
Time out. You spent $30,000 studying the riverwalk.
No, we
Now
didn't.
you want to study looking at King's Corner. What are you going to do with King's Corner?
It's part of what a committee would look at, Ray. It's part of what they would say. And
Are
it
you gonna
could
give
be
them a goal?
negative. You're right, it
You're
could
gonna
be
have a goal?
negative.
You must have an idea what you would like to do with that building.
Well, right now, I'm thinking open space, a garden, something to make it attractive for people. I don't know what the open space can actually be used. Maybe a parking lot. I don't know if you can put
So rather
papers down
than
and park
paying
cars there.
for taking care of Sandy,
My
your idea
motion
is to
has
provide-
nothing to do with what you're debating me right now.
No, because you want to increase our debt by buying King's Corner, turning it into a river.
If we didn't spend all the open space money, we wouldn't have to go in debt, maybe. I don't know.
Time out, we spent it on an emergency. Versus going out and borrowing money, which is going to raise our taxes. You want to raise our taxes.
No, I don't.
That's
Stop
what you
it,
want to
Ray.
do. That's what your
Stop it.
motion is called.
Stop it.
Just to that
That's
point,
the bottom line.
if you want a committee to do that, you can put that on 25th's agenda, form a committee, look for members, but it is increasing your taxes because you would take the $12,000 that property pays in property taxes off the tax rolls. So there is an impact to current operating budget, there's no specific.
And you have the same proposal that you've talked to us about, buying something to take it off the tax rolls.
What's that? That was
A
executive
building.
session night?
Right.
Right, which has gone nowhere.
Well, we haven't talked about it again. We've taken off the US building and it sits there doing nothing. You know, we've
But again,
done, but it's a
No,
study.
no, it's an executive session item, but if you recall, it would save rent elsewhere and ultimately pay for itself, so it's a big difference there. It's a big
I don't
no,
know
it's a
sure
big
about
difference.
that.
And the other item is item, and I would hold off on your committee because item H, I apologize, item F, off-street parking. The ordinance we're going to introduce by title tonight largely came from me speaking to the owner of King's Corner, who has someone interested in putting a restaurant there, but can't because of parking limitations. An ordinance under H will alleviate, under F, will alleviate that problem and possibly allow a restaurant to go there. Again, so I wouldn't go jump into a committee to buy it, because I think we can get it occupied. This is why this ordinance is here. So
Yes, I
actually,
realize
there's a
that.
motion on the table about amending the...
The motion is a resolution that we use the
resolution
open
to-
space to
Right.
fund it according to B of the ordinance.
It's really for operating procedures.
It's the way we've operated for 10 years, and
Finance
maybe,
department using the money on stuff that should be recommended.
I think that's a big shock to me. I don't think that our finance department should just look for where there's money. I mean, this is a legal matter.
I would rather see your motion state that the governing body do a resolution that any money that has been or will be spent out of open space that's rec-related be reimbursed to the Rose Fund when the borough's in the financial situation that it can be done. In other words, if you have this surplus,
I think that's two separate things.
Councilwoman, if you have a surplus, there was a time in 2011 and 12, our only surplus in this borough was the Rose Fund. There was no money. It was 575,000 over cap.
Last year.
Okay.
Right, last August, we were over cap. We had a financial disaster on our hands, it's all. You talked about it like, we had nothing to worry about, we just used it.
So the point is, you remember last year how I lobbied strongly against your position of lowering the Rose Fund tax? Okay? Because my position was, that's your only surplus in town. Why would you do that? It was combined with, it didn't make sense because then you wouldn't be able to afford the DPW salaries, which And in fact, you voted to do the 80,000 that comes out of there. Let me
Out
finish.
of open space,
It was the prior auditor who made that recommendation. You can't shift
not out of
80,
open space.
you can't
You
shift,
voted on that.
you voted on it. You can't
Voted
shift
on that.
$80,000 of new gross fund money, of DPW salary and wages and take it out of recreation. You can't. There's not enough money in there
Because
to
you're
do
only
that.
going to go after the amount of money that has accumulated because nobody else.
It's your surplus,
Spotlighted it.
absolutely. Councilwoman, how else would you pay, tell me then how you would have paid the $80,000 of increased DPW wages, which, by the way, your majority, when you run the council, when you have council majority, voted to do. And why? So you can make cap on the current operating budget. So for you to have issue, and I understand your issue, but for you to have issue with what you just stated occurred, contradicts your exact actions for using 80,000 of that money to offset your own budget in 2011.
Again, I will tell you that I naively thought it would come out of which has never been less than 75% of the roads, but the other parts of the roads.
You make these votes, and they contradict.
No, I never intended it because I thought the referendum and the
Councilwoman,
ordinance would
okay.
not allow it to come out of open
You
space.
make these votes, you're on the record making votes, whether it be Bill's list or paying 80,000 of DPW salary and wages, and then a year and a half later, you also come back and say, I didn't know, or I didn't have the knowledge. I mean, that's your job to have the knowledge, not to change your position.
It's amazing to think that after 10 years, they would just go and pay John's lawn service out of open space. Hasn't been done in 10 years. Why would I ever think that that would happen?
Probably because it was the only place for surplus, because
The
you took
only place
80,000
that
for
wasn't
DPW salary
rated.
and wages. All right, there's a motion on the table.
The Jones Lawn Service was to cut down the trees that were blocking
No,
our
it was
residents
the
from
law.
going
No, it had
to
nothing
school.
to do with FEMA. It had nothing to do with FEMA.
It was a natural disaster.
It
that
was
hit
cutting the lawn at the schools. That's what it was, Ray.
in August.
Whatever month it was more than once. Lawn services for $4,500. The bill started in August, and they went on through.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to actually audit what you're reading to everyone, because I believe what you're referring to, and you're right, the RER,
Top grinding.
17,000 top grinding, it was all storm related.
No, I separated the storm. I separated the storm from the other accounts. Lawn services were $4,560. The storm was John's, was RER and John's, that was $37,000.
Here's
That
what
was
the public should
separate
know.
from the rest.
Here's what the public should know. 2 years ago, we had an opportunity to go in front of county, out of all of our county roads money that we pay for this tax. County collects this open space tax from us and they can grant us money, and we put in an application for the Walter T. Bergen bathrooms. Ms. Shortman, by herself, went to county and submitted a second grant for
I
us,
did not, the
which
council
was for
voted
the
on it.
Riverwalk study for
They submitted it.
$30,000. Guess what? Which one the county chose? The $100,000 bathroom grant or the $30,000 Riverwalk study? They chose the $30,000 Riverwalk study. Here we are, she's picking on the fact that we spent money to take care of trees that were laying all over our roads. We couldn't get
It
to
had nothing
stores.
to do with that.
And picking on all of those expenses, wanting to bring back money to the roads so she can buy another building and turn it into open space, like we need that.
You are so
In this town.
absurd, Ray.
Which means we have to go borrow money in order to do all this, which is going to increase our taxes.
Here's what I recommend.
She doesn't understand it. She said it herself, and every recommendation
No,
she
I don't
makes
think you
is going to
understand.
cost you money.
I don't
And
think
I'm
you
going to vote no
understand.
for your.
You
Councilwoman,
don't understand.
Councilwoman, let me just say this. There's a motion on the table, so we'll go to a roll call. But what I would suggest, which is right out of your playbook, is that we should have discussions like this. We should have committees to look at these things. So I would ask
We're
that
not
this,
discussing.
listen, I would ask that this motion does not go through, and between now and our next meeting, the 25th, you have this discussion. Anyone who has questions, like you all voted no on capital orders because you didn't have the estimates, you didn't review that. So the same should apply here, okay? You should vote no because you you haven't reviewed what Councilwoman is talking about. So then come the 25th, if you choose to put it on the agenda, a policy as such, after all the homework and due diligence is done, that you state should always be done, that's how it should proceed. But for now, there's a motion on the table. Yes?
Are you done?
I am done.
Because I just had a procedural question, I guess, for the attorney, because it's not really clear to me what the motion we're about to vote on is actually trying to accomplish. Because it seemed to me that we have a resolution in front of us that says we will follow an ordinance that is already on the books. And I'm trying to get a clarity in terms of what this resolution would be and how even if it was in place, anything else we did would supersede it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, what it sounds to me is like, and Mrs. Short can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like she's requesting a policy for the council. Now, that doesn't mean you have to follow it, but stating that this is what I'd like to see from the governing body position going forward. You're not bound by it, like you said. But, it's not like you're amending the ordinance or anything of that nature, but you're saying that, look, for expenditures going forward, we want everyone to know this is where we're going to direct our emphasis or our expenditures. And I think what it sounds to me like you're looking at, you'd like the council to make a policy decision that you're going to emphasize the spending on open space type acquisitions. That would be correct.
In other words, anything rec-related should not come out of the open space line. It's what you're the policy looking.
I just like the past to be followed, which it hasn't been. I don't understand how I get that to happen.
These Rose committees and advisory committees, they make recommendations many times. Matter of fact, in 2011-12, that were just totally ignored and not even accepted. And, you didn't accept their recommendations in 11 and 12, based on their splits and whatnot. So they're advisory. So the proof of that is the fact that the governing body is the ultimate body that controls the Rose. Okay? So to your point, you want a policy that says that the governing body, or that no bills can be paid rec-related. That's what you're looking for. My position, again, is everyone should do the due diligence, see what Councilwoman is referring to. I would still argue, if that's your place where surplus goes, or where there's the surplus to do things in town, then that's where it should be paid from. That's.
But John, so if we're going to create a committee to go look after spending,
This is not the motion.
that is you read that whole
That is
thing.
not part
It's
of my motion.
part of
That
it.
wasn't part of her motion, that was part of her
That was the
presentation.
Thank you, Chris.
So for that purpose, we're going to make this motion.
No, it's to go back to what we intended, what the referendum intended, and what every council has done up until last fall. And it is nothing to do with
Why
FEMA
do
or
we
the
need a
tree.
motion for that?
Because I don't want to go find that more money is being spent until there's nothing left in that account. And I made the motion, and that's it.
There's a motion on the table, so we'll roll call.
Councilmember Sandemeyer.
No.
Yasi.
No.
Cochran.
Yes.
Tomato.
No.
Della Ripa.
I'm going to pass. I'm still thinking. Is there anyone else after me? Or
Me.
I'm stuck, yeah.
Linda.
Look, Linda.
Yes.
Shortman. Delbert.
I appreciate the concept behind it, but based on what our attorney said, it doesn't seem to have any on the bone, so I'm going to vote no.
I don't know how I guess the only thing you can do is look at every item on the bills list, and if it's a Rose Fund item and it says 801, then you have to know that it's coming out of the open space portion. And I think it's a shame because I don't think anybody who voted for the Rose Fund to be created thought that it would be spent in this manner. And my point to bringing up the advisory board has nothing to do with their recommendations. It has to do with the fact that anything they recommend in the split percentages doesn't matter anyway.
Well,
I mean, I think the next thing on the agenda, and Councilman Dasty, to say something you want to pursue is a motion to amend that split. I mean, we're 53% open space. Bloomingdale, as much as I appreciate open space, we are already 53%. That is why the taxes are high. Half of our land is not taxed, okay? The Rose Fund was established for both purposes, recreation and open space, okay? That was 12 years ago. Today, the need for open space can exist anymore, doesn't exist. You cannot afford to take a stitch of land off our tax rolls. People complain every day, my taxes, my taxes, my taxes. We cannot take more open space off the rolls. Now, all the rec expenditures, cutting of grass, building ball fields, and all of that, if the Rose Fund didn't exist, or was cut, as you wished to do last year, where would that come from? We either would stop doing it, which is why
If it
our,
cut, it would
excuse
stay
me,
the
excuse me,
same.
excuse me, please. Which is why our rec, in 2000 and prior, which is exactly why our rec facilities were in the most deplorable, and no one can dispute this, condition. Every playground was unusable, every ball field was tragically in poor shape. Okay? Why? Because that's the first thing cut out of a current operating budget. So it is the Rose Fund. Solely the reason is the Rose Fund. That is why our recreation on every level has been renovated and is state of the art. Every level. Every playground is new, every ball field is new, and then that requires maintenance. So how do you pay for it? You're either going to pay for it out of a Rose Fund, which thank God it exists, or current operating, and guess what? With cap, with cuts, with rising costs, that's what any governing body will cut first. And thank God the Rose Fund exists to avoid just that from happening.
You know, John, I agree 100% with everything you said.
Write that down.
Yes, I appreciate money, I appreciate what has happened with rec. I am not saying one word against using the 3/4 plus of the Rose Fund to accomplish just what you're saying. However, there is an open space portion, and it's cut down to 10%, which I voted yes on.
Okay.
I voted yes to do that this year. However, when you look back at where the money is in the open space, it should not be used because it's a travesty to even have a committee recommend, just call it the recreation fund.
See, again, I
Just
don't
call it
want to. The
recreation.
motion died. I have two final things to say on that. Three final things. The committee still has a function. They make the recommendations, and that's the work that's achieved. They don't tell you where to spend it from, number one. Number two, anything else? No, just, oh no, you're not counting, there's $180,000 yet to be deposited in there from this year, because we just adopted the budget. That's great.
I just want to say, I mean, part of the thing that was sticking with me about the motion, I didn't want to talk too much during the voting because I know we're not supposed to, but I mean, it seemed like this was more of an administrative issue. You know, I mean, it was really an issue with how the finance department handled this stuff.
Then here's
And here's what I tell the finance department.
Here's what we do. This is a government office. We have government operations committee, which is John. Hold on. That's what we're going to do. Which is John, Mike Sondermeyer, and Ray Yastin. Okay. So how about someone give a motion to refer Councilwoman's issue to the government ops committee to review with finance on what went there, why to go there, and maybe we have the reasons and the answers we all need to answers. So will someone make that motion? Just to have, no, just to refer to committee on record. Refer to committee. Is the motion, is there a second?
Second.
All we're doing is referring Councilwoman's concern to committee. And the committee will sit with Sherry and myself and we'll understand it better. Any further discussion?
We can readdress this.
Sorry?
If I could just say one thing, I think, just to make the record clear,
Correct.
I don't think anybody here is saying that finance is doing something wrong.
Right.
I mean, I think that they only have the accounts and the hands that they can deal with. I mean, I know you had, severe financial issues last year, and there was nowhere else to go, but I think, I don't think it'd be fair to say on the record that it's, finance is full. I don't think anybody's saying that. I think you're asking finance to somehow coordinate this with the governing body going forward. I think it's a big distinction.
That's what the committee will review. Thank you for clarifying that. Is there any further discussion? So give just all in favor on that.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so, John, you're the chair, take the lead on that, and we'll work with finance and we'll understand it all a little better. Okay. Item F, phone. Yes, sir.
Should that go on the pending items list or something, so it doesn't drop off? Or not?
Yeah, not on pending agenda, on pending list.
Yeah.
Actually, put it under the governance committee section. Okay, thank you, Richard. Okay, ordinance number 22, we're a busy month, 2013, off-street parking. Again, we're just introducing by title. I had referred to the ordinance review committee this concept, and again, I thank, now we have a few members here, four members here, Mr. Simone, Bill Seastrip, Bill Graff, and Pete Crew. Thank you for returning this around so quickly. I believe a lot of our Main Street problems are we all know is parking. But our parking issue stifles a lot of potential new growth. The restaurants, even something as simple as an accountant's office, maybe not having enough parking spaces on premises. So what we're doing in this ordinance is allowing our on-street parking, our curb line parking, to count in a site plan application for the required number of parking spaces that may be needed for something. We're going to introduce by title. I've referred this to the county because ultimately the county has to approve the striping of parking spaces. We will identify and quantify parking spaces by lining them on Main Street. So there's a defined number of parking spaces all the way down Main Street, from Peaks Corner to Riverdale Bridge, and those can count to allow use that Main Street so desperately needs. So,
They can be used multiple times,
I'm sorry.
multiple establishments.
Again, the planning board will hear each and every application. This is going to help because you'd be amazed over the years, not so much with the economy in the last year, how many people have gone to our construction office and said, hey, this is what I want to do, and haven't even gotten any further than that because of this issue. At least this will open the door to come to the planning board or have our construction issue a potential permit without even having to go through a variance or a site plan approval process. This is all to spur growth on Main Street. And I think it's a positive direction we absolutely need to support. So, someone needs to make a motion to introduce by title. Roll call,
Councilmember
please. June 25th, the second and final reading, 7:30.
Councilmember Yelsey.
Yes.
Copeland. Tomato.
Yes.
Delariva.
Yes.
Short. Yes. Sondemire.
Yes.
Sorry. I'll read the title then. An ordinance amending 92-22 all-street parking. That's sufficient. All right, so again, second and final on next meeting, 25th. Good, Jane? Okay, next item. Ordinance 23, 2013. This ordinance has come about because of a demand, not just in Bloomingdale. Actually, if you notice it in our blue trends in West Milford, it's also just dealt with this difference, this issue. We already have an ordinance on the books that allows chickens in an R130 zone, which is 3 or more acres, okay? But we have had a great demand from residents to allow chickens on smaller parcels. And this was referred to the ordinance review committee, who again has done quite a bit of work. It's come back with this ordinance will be introduced by title. This will allow a maximum of 4 chickens with no rooster. You want the noise in small neighborhoods. You don't need a rooster to make eggs. You don't need a rooster to make other chickens. So this is 4 chickens in the other zones other than an R130. An R130 allows 20 chickens, which already exists. It's already on books.
So you get more chickens, you just gotta go get the chicken, and most of them get.
Most can have 4. Okay? There will be a permit process, a permit fee. This will be administered by the Board of Health, various proper inspections. Okay? There is one minor revision to what you have in your book, which has to do with standards for the coop, which I will refer in the morning to Fred, but this we're just introducing by title. Proper correction is minor, will be properly advertised for our final adoption on the 25th. So again, This is, personally, I have received in excess of 8 phone calls from residents who, it's a big health, craze, I'll call it, which is probably not a good word, on the fresh eggs. And they're looking to accommodate residents who are interested in doing it. I only believe the ones who are serious will be doing it because there's coop standards that, it's not you just put them in a shoebox and have chickens. Standards here, it's a permit process, inspections. And to help our residents not have to pay a $1,500+ variance, go to our board for a variance, they were trying to seek this, therefore we're amending to allow us in these smaller parcels of property. So, there's a motion, 23, 2000, I just wanted to, thanks for humoring me, I wanted to just get that up. And there's a second by Della Ripa, and roll call, please. This is introduction.
How big a piece of property do they need for?
It's every zone, it's the R, no, non-commercial, non-commercial. Your R10, your R20, your R40 zones are all 4, it's all the same. Except your R30 with 130, which is 30 acres that already exists. Roll call, please. Yes, question, I'm sorry. Chicken and pigeons. Yeah, again, it's chicken and pigeon, which is already existing, okay? Our code already exists. We're just amending it. If you notice, the number of permitted chickens in residential zones, so the prohibited uses are specific to chickens in this amendment. Okay? Chickens and pigeons are not permitted in zones other than designated in the section. Keeping of chickens and pigeons in any other zone is prohibited. So it's already existing, we're just allowing the numbers of smaller parcels of land.
Pigeon side of it, you still have to stick with the old.
Yeah, I refer, there's no change. Pigeons would apply now also in the zones. 4 pigeons as well as 4 chickens. No, it's just chickens.
No numbers on the pigeons.
No numbers on the pigeons?
No change.
Just
No change.
whatever was there before.
Right, there's no change to the pigeons. Okay, anyone else? Again, introduction by title. Roll call.
Councilmembers Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Del Ripa.
Yes.
Short. Yes. Sondemire.
Yes.
Yazdi. And that would be an ordinance amending.
Amending the fee, I'm sorry, amending, guidance 221, yep. Mr. Graff, if I may, being that this is zoning, we should now refer back to the plan.
It would seem to me that any change to the zoning laws,
Okay.
the planning board would have 35
So
days
we'll
to comment
amend,
on.
when does the planning board meet, if I may ask?
13th and the 20th.
13th, so maybe get this on for the 20th. We'll move to adopt July 24th, or 23rd is our meeting. Okay, so second and final, I'll amend that, is July 23rd. Jane will forward it to the planning board through their secretary, and hopefully you guys can give it their blessing. And we'll move forward. Thank you. See you in the final. Okay, good, Jane? Next item, introduction of ordinance 24, 2013. We have a fee ordinance on what it costs to open a road when we need to cut our road. And our fee is just too low. Our fee, right now, we charge $30. We are amending this, introducing by title this evening, to increase it to $200. Currently, we are charged $225 when we open a county road. Okay? So our fees are just outdated. So we're introducing by title to amend ordinance, I'm sorry, introduction by title, ordinance 24, 2013, amending fee ordinance for road opening permits from $30 to $200. And that applies, for example, to PSCG, to cut our roads. And again, just because ours is against the paper. And who makes that motion? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Tomato.
Yes.
Del Ripa.
Yes.
Short. Yes. Sondemire.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Conklin. That would be an ordinance amending chapter 3-11, the ordinance for street openings and.
Exactly, second and final on June 25th. Okay? Next item, adoption of resolution 2013, 6.8, authorization to sell a 1998 Dodge truck. We have a truck that is already out of service. Guys, this up? Out of service, doesn't run, rotted body, rotted cab. I can go to GovOps, but we have an employee, one of our mechanics who would look to buy this, and I would like authorization to sell it to him for $250. It needs to get a resolution approved by the governing body to do so. Who makes that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any further discussion, other than I reviewed it with Fred? And I've done book value comparisons to make sure we're getting fair market value, which is none. Just so it's important when it's government property, you can't have something worth $10,000 and try to sell it for $250. So all that due diligence has been done, Fred's approved it, this is why it's on the agenda for that authorization. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Delarose.
Yes.
Short. Yes. Sondemire.
Yes.
Yasti.
Yes.
Conklin. Tomato.
Yes.
Item J, I added an item, non-agenda item earlier, which is the hiring of 4 part-time summer employees for DPW, and they are shared in the utility. This is done every year. What I'd like to do, because the deadline was last week for all applications, we received quite a few, quite a range too of candidates. And we don't meet till the 25th. Usually the goal here is college students who are, or high school students who are off for the summer, they go to school. It would be a June 20th to August 15th kind of schedule. It's a budget item. But I like the authorization from the governing body to hire 4. The department heads and myself will finalize which 4 will be. Back to your names, but I want to move on it. So if I wait till the 25th, we lose. Too late. Well, not too late. We lose some good candidates because they'll get other jobs. It's all summer part-time. And so I have a motion just to approve myself with the department heads to proceed on hiring 4 part-time DPW laborers. So, a second? Second. Is there any further discussion? Again, other than for the record, it's a budgeted item. It's done every year, and it helps supplement vacation time. It helps with vacation time. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Short.
Yes.
Sondemire.
Yes.
Yasti.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Tomato. Delarose.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any public comment, or a motion to open any public comment? A second? Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, anyone wish to speak, please come up. State your name and address for the record.
Al Miller, 7 Mary Street. Just a quick question, we'll take one. I have a house next to me that's empty and for sale for a couple of years. I also have a house up the street from me that's abandoned, and everything's unkept. I mean, what do we do?
Have you ever reported it?
No, I haven't, I don't know the process, I'm just asking the process.
I think not. What street?
I live on 7 Mary Street.
Okay.
The house right next to me that's been for sale for probably 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And every once in a great while they cut the grass, but maybe twice a year.
Yeah. We have an employee, Bill Tyson, who's our property maintenance officer,
Okay.
who is a great enforcer of these kind of things, what we need to know. I mean, he works 8 hours a week, so he doesn't get much revenue. You can go to the website, fill out an inquiry and all that, but if you would, better yet, just call Jane in the morning, give her the exact addresses.
Yeah, well, I got,
Here's what we do. I'm sorry to interrupt you. If it's still an owned home, usually we get compliance. We send a nice letter,
Okay.
and when they don't respond, we send a not so nice letter and a summons. We have court date. And it's just like a traffic violation. The bench warrant issued if you don't come. We get compliance. Problem is when they're in foreclosure, that's a tough one. And if there's a public health and safety issue, and I've done it recently, and we've done it in the past, I have DPW deal with it. And we put a labor bill on it, and we file liens if we can, on the property. But if it's a public health and safety issue, and that much of a blight to the neighborhood, I will have DPW go just cut it to give it a clean appearance, and a public health and safety fix it. But often, if it's called a realtor, they'll comply. There's a lot of avenues we have to do it. The toughest ones are when they're in foreclosure, or the house is vacant. Those we fight all the time. We have about a dozen.
We have this one, and there's another one on Greenland. I mean.
Yeah, Greenland, I know exactly that one. That's the tree went through the roof.
Yeah.
That one's not yet in foreclosure. The owner lives in Virginia, and they just don't
You
comply.
know what I'm talking about?
There's,
Yeah.
yep, there's bench warrants on that person. Yeah, I get emails on that one every day.
Do you?
Yep,
Yeah, that's nice.
it's a mess. I mean, the town,
Huh? Yeah.
she was in Catholic school, actually. I don't want to say the name. But anyway,
Probably do more.
that's close to foreclosure, not yet, but there's a little bit of time. Because that one, I just spoke to our property maintenance officer yesterday on it. And summons has been issued again. Last time it was our DPW took the trees off the roof
Did it?
from, right, Mayor Seashore, you were there then. That was, our guys took it off because there was no response. So there's liens on that one already. Probably gonna have more success when it goes to foreclosure.
That was,
It's for sale, but it's also going to foreclosure.
yeah, I don't know, something, I was going out there past the other day, there's some yellow sign with 140,000, but I don't think
I think it's gotta be knocked down. And I also heard there's an oil tank.
Thanks.
It's a mess. So thank you. But again, now, Al, if you confirm the Mary Street one, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'll check.
Okay, call Jane,
I'll get the number up.
and I'll get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to bother the council and your
No.
office.
No bother.
How do I,
Just state your name and address for
I'm
the
sorry,
record.
my name is Mark Rivera, I live before the Hamburg Turnpike.
Okay,
How do I get an ordinance enforced?
okay. Again, we have an officer who does that.
Okay, who is that?
If it's a property maintenance issue, it's
Well,
Tyson, if
it's
it's a
something-
zoning issue,
It's
it's
something you spoke about earlier, saying I do have to close the dumpster.
dumpster, right?
I live next to Casper's. I'd like that dumpster taken care of. I
Okay.
spoke to the owner, he said that he would take care of it last week, nothing's done. I
Okay.
spoke to Dan, he called the Board of Health, they came over, told him that I called them, and he came knocking on my door angrily, wanting to know why I called them about him calling me in the dumpster again. Who do I speak to about getting this taken care
I'll
of?
take care of it when you'll speak to him.
Thank you very much.
Denise Willis, 7 Mary Street.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you guys for being more civil tonight and not attacking each other.
I almost lost it for a little
No,
while. I held
you're
it, yeah.
welcome, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment.
Tom Tracy, with the Grafton Road.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for, Mr. Mayor and the council, what you have done, what I see going on with the roads right now. I know we're going to put up with some inconvenience in the next couple of whatevers, but they look fantastic. So thank you so much
That's good.
for that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, appreciate it. Yes. No chicken chops.
You don't have what I.
Oh, I know. Oh, I just thought it'd be too close to home.
William Bradley, Bloomingdale Lane. John, just a point of clarification on the parking ordinances.
Yes, sir.
There are 5 ordinances involved, and I suggest, unless Mr. Summerall thinks otherwise, that they probably also need to go back to the planning board for the 35-day review. If the chicken ordinance needs to, I mean, that one should also perhaps.
Chicken we did,
The chicken we did, street parking, just,
Are we sure we have the right ordinances when we say off-street parking? Because I know there was one being generated by the police department in regard to
no,
off-street parking.
that's separate. That's,
That's
no, I took
something else.
exactly, that's, we read the title exactly from what the ordinance review committee provided us. And if I may.
Because I don't remember using any wording on off-street parking.
You know what?
But that's okay.
I may. The item is 9222 parking loading, and I just read the first chapter, A was off-street parking, okay? It's just 9222 was the right.
That's the first ordinance.
Okay, you know, orders changes to allow Main Street and immediate side street parking to satisfy all the park load requirements, okay, zoning. So that was the right one, I just used off-street was the wrong word.
Sure enough.
And then you had, it references 9254, the RMM residential and office zone. Okay, you referenced that.
9222, 9243, 9254, 55,
Right.
55.
Anywhere there's parking related in the current zone. To be safe, we should refer?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Scott, what we'll do, do we have to do a formal action? That was on for the 25th. We'll amend it until July 23rd. We have to do formal action? Okay. So after public comment, I'll amend that. We'll send it back again to look at. Always ask for the planning board in one of their next two meetings to deal with it. We'll get it to Barbara tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. That's an executive session. Yes, sir.
Edward Simone, 352 Glenwell Avenue. I'm here as the chairman of the Rose Fund, since there was so much talk tonight about the Rose Fund. I just want to clarify a few things. The Rose Fund was well aware that due to Storm Irene and due to Storm Sandy, that monies will move in order to offset some of these expenses and to be reimbursed by FEMA. As the mayor stated, the Rose Fund does not allocate what bills get paid and how they get paid. They just allocate, we just recommend as to what projects should be addressed by the borough, and we recommend percentages. As Mr. Shortman said, that, it's frustrating on the Rose Fund when we make recommendations and it's not listened to. But I'd also like to remind Mr. Shortman that the most grievous occurrence of not listening to the Rose Fund was 2011. Right? The problem here with open space in the Rose Fund comes up at every Rose Fund meeting, and the answer is simple to some extent. The Rose Fund was established and needed in order to get matching grants from Green Acres. Green Acres now apparently has dried up. There are no grants coming from Green Acres. So what I'm suggesting to the council, what may be something to look into, is Mayor Dunleavy is right. Since I moved here, the parks everything's improved tremendously. And recreation and the parks are the heart of this town. This is what this town is all about. We're never going to have big box development. We need to sell family. We should look at creating a parks and recreation program and separate these two funds. And that might be a more reasonable way of handling this. How it goes about, I have to leave it to you guys. I don't know. But we really, with what we've done with the parks and what we've done with recreation, we need to start to think about forming a parks and recreation department. Be an offshoot of the DPW, work within the DPW, but I think that might be something that this council and the future councils may have to look into, and separate an open space fund. Whether we divide the tax or whether we form a separate referendum, but that might be the easiest way to solve this argument, because it goes on at every Rose Fund meeting for the 6 or 7 years that I've been on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wishing to speak? See no one, motion to close. All in favor? Okay, we will be entering into a late executive session. We have two matters of negotiation and two matters of attorney-client privilege. And consideration of executive session items, action may be taken. Love would have an opportunity, if so, to speak to that. Oh, and before we go to executive, I would like to I need a motion to amend the on-street parking ordinance that we introduced by title this evening, second and final reading to July 23rd at 7:30. It's a motion from Yazdi, second. By Sondermeyer, July 23rd. And all in favor? Aye. Okay, so we'll go to the planning board and we'll get it back and move forward. Okay, so again, we will be entering executive session. I do need a motion to do so. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, it's 10:11 p.m. Thank you. Public session at 11:15. There are two items to be dealt with. The first is I'd like someone make a motion to give Police Chief Morrell the authority for a promise to hire, which would be effective on the graduation date of the academy. second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Mayor, so that, for the record, that means there may be 2 officers in total.
Correct.
Okay.
We made that one previously.
Yeah, so I mean, you're making this one, it's just for clarification.
Well, no, one was already done.
Right.
2 months ago, so I don't know why I have to do that.
That's right.
Any further discussion? Roll.
Councilmember Sandemeyer,
Yes.
Yasti,
Yes.
Conklin, Tomato,
Yes.
Delariva,
Yes.
Shortman.
Yes.
Okay, the second, we need a motion related to a potential transaction between Tilcon Quarries and the Mir Estates, and I'll defer to our attorney for the wording of that motion.
Yes, the motion would be to consider the concept by Tilcon to purchase the Mir tract, donate the affordable housing aspect of that tract to the borough. Tilcon would seek to utilize the remaining aspects with boundaries and borders of that tract. The request for the motion is to simply indicate that you're willing to entertain this proposal, that the borough is not bound by this, but they're simply looking to see if there's any objection at this point in time, since Tilcon and Mir want to move forward to see if in fact they can essentially seek approval down the road from the borough for this transaction that would require potential zoning overlays and approvals by the borough. And this motion would in no way bind you or approve any type of zoning or transaction. It's simply a consensus that you would be willing to entertain this, and at this point in time, you don't find it objectionable, but you're not bound by it. So that would be the motion, so that we can give a response to the attorneys for the Mir, for Tilcon and the Mir property of the governing bodies, just preliminary thoughts.
Okay, who makes that motion?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Your roll call, please.
Councilmember Yasti,
Yes.
Conklin,
Yes.
Tomato,
Yes.
Delariva,
Yes.
Shortman,
Yes.
Sandemeyer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in